Hello, welcome back to UPL, or the soon-to-be rebanded UPL. It's going to be the quarterfinals, and that means starting us off, since it's a lovely Monday, it's going to be the cross-the-pond duo. That means McCready and Chief are back at it once again. My beautiful friend, hello.
Hey man, how you doing? Anyway, yes, like you said, UPL, it's going to be rebranded. There's a lot of exciting things on the way, but a lot of exciting things have to come first. And well, those playoffs, they're exactly one of them. Entering the quarterfinals stage, Chief, these teams you know a lot more about, so I'm not going to pretend to know more than you. But X13 and Depth, there's been a little bit of change in the rosters from what I know, but I'll let you take it from here.
I'm hyped for this cast simply because when I started casting about a year ago, these organizations were, well, the best teams in T3. Now, those players are all over the place, still playing at the top end of T3. And surprise, surprise, some of those players have once again returned. So it's nice to see Depth and X13 in this lobby. But if you know anything about T3, all 10 of these players are about as common and excellent. Common in a good way. Common being the fact that they're, well, capable of winning. And honestly, every one of these rosters, I promise you, want to win this grand final.
I'd hope if they're in the playoff stage at this point, then they'd want to win. Yeah, I feel like also being good at winning is also a big benefit, Chief. You know, I'm scraping the barrel here, shockingly enough, because you said if you know the NAT3, you know these teams. They've been around the scene. Well, I haven't. So, I mean, you know, ones to watch, what I should really look out for. Please help me, my man.
On the side of Depth, Spiker, the young up-and-coming gunner, Esteem, same boat. Dami, surprise, surprise, he fits that trio of gunners. And then you add Adapt, and it becomes this quadruple effect of gunners, and Breeze is going to be that support player, that rock, the IGL, and It's just that culmination of goodness. Snows, on the other hand, moving over to X13, he's a player with also a lot of experience coming from
Mhm.
Season 3 of SCS. He had a good run there. He played on lower end teams, but he's found his way into X13, gaining that experience. J-Slime, Bry, Craze, and Ust, same boat. Again, it's a lobby of players who have so much experience, and it's going to be one of those series where you're like, who do you even vote for? Because I could promise you, if you're a viewer, you have friends on both these rosters, and you don't know who to vote for.
Well, I mean, yes, that's my reason, Chief. Now, coming back to us, well, we're not going to waste that much time. We are going to talk about these maps. Now, because it's playoffs, we're not having best of ones. We're having best of threes, Chief. 3 maps. And I know production has been very, very excited for this. So let's bring them up. Let's take a look because I think they're quite excitement. The excitement was killed because we actually did want to see a console come up on the board. But, Chief, Villa, CAF, and Clubhouse, the T3 trifecta.
I gotta say, if people's excitement was killed, you're doing something wrong in this ban phase because Borrigan was removed up front and center by depth. I mean, the most lame, overplayed map doesn't even get a chance to be picked. And you know what, McCready? I am absolutely for it. And sure, Chalet, Consulate, they didn't make it through, but still, as long as Oregon, I don't have to cast that today, I am a happy camper. Honestly, though, this ban phase, I don't think it favors any roster in particular. I think this is a solid showing for this full series.
I mean, looking at this from somebody who doesn't really know the teams, there's not much I can glean because one team banned Consulate, the other banned Coastline. So the frag and maps, they were taken away by both teams. I think maybe with depth taken away Consulate at the very end might be them saying, okay, well, we have a choice. Do we have that final map being Clubhouse? Do we go for the strategy or more fragging wise? I don't know. I mean, the roster that you talked about of depth, you wouldn't be worried really going to a map like Consulate or Coastline, but well, that's just the situation we're in. Villa, CAF, and Clubhouse, the strat heavy maps, the maps that you need to know, let's be honest. So that makes a lot of sense actually when you say, you know, these teams, they floated around for a bit, but now they're coming back together. And well, yeah, that makes sense. You know, they might have been apart. The meta's changed. Strats have changed, Chief. They might be finding their feet. You never know.
And to build on that, if we see, well, SI, it just took place, the biggest event in Rainbow Six Siege. And after we see a major event or any land, which we haven't seen in over a year, regions start to break down those strategies because you get to see all 4 regions come together and you start to digest, learn how everyone's playing, and then you get to go back to remaking your own unique style. So now that yesterday was, well, that grand final, Ninjas in Pajamas, spoiler alert, ended up winning. Now, are these rosters, they have enough time to try to emulate some of that success, learn from it, and apply new strategies? At least for the ban phase, everything looks pretty normal. You have a Thatcher, you have a long-range hard breacher, and you have an information operator instantly removed.
Well, I'm not going to make any predictions based on what I've seen because, Chief, it's at this moment I'd like to point out that this time last week on the R6 main channel, I had over 1 million channel points. Now I have about 50. So I'm going to save my judgment for the end here, but Valkyrie Maestro being taken away, that makes quite a lot of sense. You know, Maestro, he has a lot of late round potential, but you might just look at this and say, well, I might as well pick Echo. Well, it's a lot more powerful to bring those Evil Eyes. So banning that away, well, if you bring Echo, it's just going to get shut out. That simple, Chief. So, okay, that makes sense. Let's take a look at this Habana ban. Well, the Habana ban is simply put, it's ranged. You can bait out impact tricks by bringing this Habana, and you don't have to worry about C4s. So suddenly the attackers are left with a very interesting dilemma. Do you bring that Thermite, as it seems X13 are going to, or do you bring the Ace, which is susceptible to those impact tricks? Now, Thermite also is, but also forces C4s, which is why we're probably seeing this Valkyrie being taken away. That free information just making life hell, let's be honest.
So for me, the way I look at running an Ace or a Thermite is there going to be any electric utility on the wall? And is it safe for me to throw my utility at range, or is it safe for me to get close and personal? So people forget that if you place a thermite charge flat on the floor, it destroys the bottom part of the wall without actually being destroyed by the electricity. So if you're running a Cade and a Bandit and you need to remove somebody playing over by, let's say, the U bar, since we're over in planes and games, well, you can just place a thermite on the floor, and now you can actually take gunfights against that player where his feet are going to be exposed and he's not going to be so comfortable. Now, we've seen teams get very creative and just say, I'm too lazy to deal with that. I'm just going to push in from underneath, which is actually probably the more viable strategy, simply because, well, you need to have some real estate under your thumb if you actually want to win Villa. That's the critical aspect as we watch potentially all 12 rounds of this map. We have to see how these rosters elect to take map control. X13, since they're first one starting an attack, you can already see they're going for this linear take from the south and trying to directly deal with that mute of Dami, who's already hightailing it out of there.
Yeah, with the droning coming through, this hot droning, just like J-Slime, unafraid to really follow it up. You're looking at Domi saying, right, pull back, play it safe, catch them off guard. Do not take this gunfight early, but that's exactly what's going to happen. J-Slime going to force Domi down into that basement, or, well, it might as well be the Shadow Realm, but right now, he's going to go down below and be a big issue. The Clash, that's also going to cause issues. Spiker on the main stairs, well, there is a Zephyr on the board. There is a Nomad. These both can deal with it, but it's main stairs, and there's always that threat of somebody swinging, and they'll know exactly where you are, so you need to be careful. They'll know who has that active gun. Right now, Domi's looking to make a reappearance over towards that bike side, and if he can find a kill here, especially on the Ash, that's going to be huge.
This round is looking like a synthetic style of defense with that Clash in play. But unfortunately, Depth unable to use that Clash to any asset. Nobody was swinging off, or two members of Depth instantly fall. Breeze is able to get that refrag, but still, they're not quite out of the woods yet. And Breeze forced away from his mirror windows. Spiker gets exploded by an air jab. Depth is looking in a bad strait right now. It's now all on Breeze. He has 3 targets who are alive and active he has to go against. His teammate is unable to be res, sitting in the middle of maps. And unfortunately, what was temporarily a 3v1 is now converted into a 1v4. Breeze is looking dangerous. No nitrous cell to be had. He flips to a target from behind, but he doesn't grab any beyond that. X13 take map 1, or round 1.
Yeah, having a very, very fast map, isn't it, Chief? Anyway, but yes, take that first round, you take control of the main stairs, you find a couple of those opening kills. Well, they don't really have the opportunity to refrag. That's what those main stairs are really great about. As soon as you deal with those first 2 players, the Clash and the Jaeger, well then, if they try and refrag and get out of that, just get over towards the main stairs, well, they need to get very, very aggressive. They need to overexpose, and there's very little chance that they're actually going to get refragged if they die. That's what we saw. It was just X13 compounding and adding on these kills. So at that point, Depth, they were just losing players, and in the blink of an eye, Chief, simply put, it was a 1 versus 4. There was a player down, and like you said, that was just not going to be a revive. You take 1 kill, but you're just trying to hemorrhage everything at the moment. Now, X13. Let's see if they can do this again. They head to the same site, but there's no Clash here. Instead, we're going to see that smoke and mute combo. The mirror is going to be brought yet again. And I feel like these mute jammers are going to help a little bit more, because when you see these air jabs, well, the mute jammers, what impact do they have, Chief?
Well, hopefully the impact they have is slowing down X13. That was the problem for Depth. They weren't able to apply the brakes to X13 at all. They just lost gunfights. We just saw X13 storm in and instantaneously eradicate Depth, bring them back up to that surface. Planes and games being elected once again. And we're going to have to see how different it's going to be. We see Malusi is once again being played, set up over in Study's side. And again, a Malusi Wub Wub is a good way to create a small task that X13 now has to deal with. It's like walking in through molasses, and if you don't want to be covered in molasses, well, you have to destroy it with some type of explosive device. Now, that sounds all fine and dandy, but remember, the X13 offense is pushing in underneath, starting over here by Art side. So, if you're pushing in through Study, that means you have to rotate somebody with explosive devices up to that Study side balcony. Everybody with explosives currently is on that first floor, so if you're the IGL of X13, you have to log that back in your mind, but you also now have to log in, you have a bigger threat from underneath. That is the 2-man hold of Depth that is currently over in Library.
Yeah, Depth have realized that, well, there was a downstairs take, so they're going to try and deal with that issue head on. Get those players down below. That's where you're going to cause those issues. Now, obviously, Spiker, he realizes somebody's there. The drones have found him, so Spiker's saying, okay, something's happening. J-Slime is about to do quite a bit of damage, but it's Spiker. He's going to pop off, finding one, tags up Nomad, wants to go back for another shot, but isn't going to be able to do just yet. Takes away the drone and says, okay, I've got a bit of range. I'm wasting time. There's no way they're not dealing with me. A Breeze with a vertical play. Able to find Chapo. Depth. This is a really good adaptation. We're in for a really good game. Craze is able to find one kill, but Spiker has the refrag. And now it's a 2 versus 4 with half the round left, Chief. The attackers have barely made it into study and bookcase.
Well, that study control is going to be established by Ariana, and she immediately gets bullied into her death. Now Breeze is forced to take a gunfight, and he forces it perfectly. Snows gets headshotted, X13. They're able to take round 1, but round 2 is now in favor of Depth. You know, we were talking about how Depth needed to create a strategy where they applied the brakes. Well, they said, screw the brakes. We're going to build a brick wall in front of the car and force X13 just to slam straight into it. They did that by the double manhold on that first floor. X13 was forced to directly deal with that challenge. And, well, they attempted to deal with it, but they lost their gunfights. The problem was they didn't really coordinate where they were pushing from, and more crucially, the crossfires that they had. They never droned it out, and if they droned out those positions, they would have realized that there was a two-pronged assault happening for Depth. Not just the players who are on that first floor, but those vertical angles. As soon as those vertical angles were learned by X13, they should have realized, all right, our whole goal of just swinging these corners and taking these gunfights will not work. We have to find ways of taking these gunfights at range, because a two-floor assault where you're forced to challenge two radically different angles is just impossible. It's kind of like Icebox in Valorant, where you have somebody at regular head level and you have somebody at a boosted level. You can be the best player in the world. You're just not going to be able to flick those two targets.
Yeah, it's just impossible. That's just the philosophy of double peak, you know. 2 peak at the same time, you're just taking away all the options for success. I feel like that's the big thing. Depth, they realized, well, they went down below, let's deal with it. The question is, though, are they going to be able to take that initiative? Are they going to be able to get this round win the start of this kind of site, or are they going to have to lose that round? Now, X13, they want to go for this master bedroom. Probably want to go down below again, which is why Depth, well, they are ready, and Dommy puts down that mute jammer, realizes that window's being opened, and says, right, they're going to be coming down here. Breeze, you can rotate around if need be. You're quite close, relatively, to support me, so you're going to be the first port of call if they push this position. J-Slime going to be entering. The yellow ping is there, but it's going to be Snows taken away by Breeze. A very strong start out to this round with the diffuser going down, and the defenders, well, they're just pulling away from them, because why should they stay, Chief? They have an advantage, and now X13, they're looking uncomfortable.
Everybody forgets about the basement here on Villa, but Depth, they have not forgotten about it at all. Spiker is lurking down here. He has to be careful in this position. He can hear the players above him on those pantry stairs, and he's in a solo gunfight that he's most likely not going to win. And off screen, there he goes, falling. More members of Depth are going to follow suit. X13, after losing their primary hard breacher of Snows, is actually in a pretty solid position. Now, they won't be able to go for the triple wall hard breach, but since they have the man advantage, they can actually start to use that as an asset as they go for more gunfights in the future. They still need to be careful of Dommy, who's lurking over behind those red stairs, in a position to hinder greatly X13, because they're all on that first floor. If they go up a stairwell, they might find themselves in an awkward engagement.
Yeah, now the vertical play, it's gonna be the death of J-Slime. That entry frag trying to even things up will be upsetting the balance himself, and with that vertical play from his team, well, simply put, you can shut down anybody trying to push. You can hold that angle, but simply put, Chief, as I'm sure you know, yeah, it's a lot easier to shoot down than up. With the smoke, those smoke canisters going out as well, you're going to slow down everything. Like you said, X13, they can't get the triple wall. They need to go through some crucial choke points, and Astro, that's the only way out of here, realistically. If you go through Master Bedroom, you're stuck. You're in a choke point. They have a million angles onto you. If you get Astro, you can look towards Trophy. You can look towards that split position, get Statue. Things open up. But Depth are sitting pretty. They're waiting. They're holding these angles. They're holding it together because they realize if they can win just one gunfight, that can shut everything down. 30 seconds. This push, it just has to come.
Utility is going to ring that dinner bell. Here it comes. Depth is just lurking in positions all throughout these two bomb sites, but they're going to have to spring into action. They spring and collapse, and now Dami, SMG-11 Bro against 3. His answer is a wide peek around the door frame, but LS is there and prepared. X13, it's been a roller coaster so far for this roster, but another round for them. 2-1 so far.
Yeah, and well, you know, we can't really make any conclusions right now because last time we saw X13 pick up a round, Depth answered with one of their own going to the same place. But the adaptation, I feel like it's not just going to be as simple as stick players down below because there was a lot of different things at play in that round. I think it just comes to tightening up the basics with these crossfires, winning the gunfights most importantly, maybe even having, I'm not exactly sure, maybe even having somebody there just to play their life in Astro. Just waste that little bit more time. It could have been the smoke, but it makes a lot of sense to why you can move into Trophy Statue. I'm not exactly sure of the right answer because at that push, that was really well executed by X13. They covered the big problem areas. They moved in. They took control. They won the gunfights. In a 3 versus 3, they won 2 of the 2 gunfights. You know, what more can you really say, Chief? That's just a good position to be in. Returning to this side, I want to see them not lose that entry player. Be a bit more careful. Let's not lose your half breach in the first minute.
So we see a change currently taking place for X13. We saw the Iana be 6-picked away from into that Lion. And that's different because we saw Iana actually being quite effective since she has 1 set of frag grenades, which means she has 2 in her pocket as well as a Gon 6. That is a lot of utility to clear. And when you have a Melusi in play, that utility becomes quite important because remember, Iana was tasked with pushing in for Master Bedroom. That east door frame, the southeast door frame of Stat, it's known as concrete because you can't destroy it. You can't kill somebody with a nitro cell from underneath. Why that becomes quite important is because there was a Melusi Wopla placed there. The only operator at that time that could have dealt with it was Iana herself. There's a Melusi placed there once again. Now, we have Lion with a Gon 6, but he doesn't have those frag grenades. So my guess that change is just to increase the surface area lethality of X13 because Depth is having these large roams across the entire map because Breeze was one that got that opening kill in the Thermite. Now with a Lion in play, you can at least guarantee that refrag a little bit more because you lock that player down temporarily. Breeze won't be able to rotate after taking that gunfight and winning that gunfight.
Yeah, they realize there might be somebody down below. Breeze has got to try to deal with that because if you leave them, simply put, that's going to be horrible. Now, J-Slam heads down below to deal with Spike if possible. Breeze is in a very awkward position. If X13 put a player on 90, which is happening right now with Bry, that's just going to be shut down. J-Slam able to find Spike, and now Breeze is going to fall as well. And, well, you got to think maybe Depth should have had that 90 support on landing so you can just cover this retreat, which just got shut down. Now, all 5 players of X13, they have the utility, they have map control, and they're just kind of deciding what they want to do with it. They're not going to be going for an Astro take. They're going to go for something different, like obviously by their positions on the map. And J-Slime is going to be starting things out. The Lion Scan, well, you declared the utility dump as a dinner bell, and if the Lion Scan is the one, I don't know what is. Deployable shields will be taken away, the drones will move through, and the smoke canisters will come back. Oh, I have a little something to say about that, Chief.
First round of toxic gas goes up. Bry holding the close angle, doesn't see him enter his field of view, and Dami escapes scot-free. Since the Lion was already used, he was in that cooldown window. There was no response EE1D, and Dami is hightailed it out of there. He was able to retreat all the way back upstairs to his bomb site, and now he's going to take even more gunfights. Over by the bathroom, he takes a bullet straight to the chest, rotates out of the bathroom, but he's still being an absolute nuisance to X13 players. They're trying to push in through the door frames, and there's the first push. Craze wins the gunfight, and now the lit Dami and Adapt have to hold down their fort. Adapt's being applied pressure from every single angle, and now it's all on Dami. Against 4, a down goes in his favor, but isolated over an Astro with the diffuser now down. It's an impossible scenario, getting worse and worse, attempting wall bangs, but the only thing he does is send his tracers to the wall, and LS can get that information for free and finish him off outright.
It's very rough to be Adapt right there. Not only did you not see the player crossing, but the round was savable to that point until that happened. You had Dami playing behind, ready to cover you. As long as you could cover that door, you had a semblance of winning, because you could have Dami playing for that Astro, playing for the bathroom, Astro stairs, and then rotate around as soon as you felt pressure on the back, maybe get a refrag, but you don't shoot, you don't take the player in statue. Suddenly, Dami's all on his own, and like you said, he's able to find a kill onto the Lion, but immediately, you're looking at El Chapo planting and wide swinging, because he realizes, well, this round is just one. X13, 3 rounds have been won, depth 2, depths 1. Returning to Aviator Games, where that was 1. And the last time we saw them here, that downstairs presence, that's what won it, simply put. X13, maybe you want to try a more study-sided push, but I think Master Bedroom is the answer. You go there, you deal with some utility, not that much, you get Vault open, and you can start flooding through into Study or Aviator, take your pick. You don't worry as much about the vertical play down below. As long as Depth only commit 1 play or so, then you just shut down with the Nomad.
The only time that first floor execute becomes imperative is when Mira is in play. Mira is not in play, so you're absolutely right. You can do a more linear assault. And can we get that Belusi Wubwubs on that south stairs for a quick second? How on earth was that placed?
Right.
That's on the land. I've never seen that before.
Really? Okay, so basically what you need to do is get right onto that balcony, right where Tommy is, vault over and land on the railing, and most importantly, with the siege physics ending, engine, don't slip off. You turn around, you look towards the balcony, you put it down there. It's impossible to melee. It forces utility, and it will be triggered by somebody on the stairs. So it's a beautiful Banshee to have, and it's an absolute pain to attack.
I mean, you have an Iona back, so you have your frag grenades and Uragon 6. Now, I have to say, going back to the point I was making about Lion in round 4, I actually like that Lion play and his ability to clear utility, because there was an ADS over in Concrete. He was able to burn his own ADS and then destroy that Melusi Wubwub. So it actually worked out probably better for X13, because if they went with the traditional way that they're executing, they would have had to burn a frag grenade as well as a Gun 6. And it's just sometimes a bitter pill to swallow when you know that you're just giving up a crucial bit of utility. Now, Spiker won't give up any utility. Gripped and ripped. LS and J Slime fall. A perfect read through the floor. And X13, it doesn't matter what utility they bring. They just lost a lot of it.
Yes, and well, that's a simple counter to me saying, maybe don't worry about the vertical play. That C4 was huge. You knew about the information, you knew where they were, about where they'd be, and now you don't have an Ash, you don't have that engine, you don't have a Nomad for the flank. Suddenly you're looking at a much more aggressive Depth, much more confident, because they realize they might have just won the round with that C4. Adapt holding that angle, the 416 has had the recoil nerf, but it's still very, very, very lethal. Snow's going to be taking quite a bit of damage. Spike, you're able to find a kill of their own, but Bry will have an answer. Pushes through, but can't find a steam. It's going to be down to Snow finding 2 heads. Make that 3! But you need to find a Adapt now. Yet to find a kill, and was the reason that that last round was not really won. It's harsh, but you really can't be losing those. Snow's going to be pushing down this 9th corridor, and here's the ADSs. Knows you do anything about it, you give away your position. The swing comes through. Slowly moving through. The pre-fire will follow, and you're looking to get a kill. Oh, but you're nearly able to find the kill. You're just dancing. You're trading everything. You spot the Jaeger, but you don't land it. And there it is, the quad kill. It took a while, but we got there, Chief.
Nose was on maybe, what, we'll call it 12 HP there? He was 1 toxic gas breath to death. He was at 1 impact grenade, 1 nitrocell, and 1 bullet. He took 4 different gunfights against Depth, and he won every single one of them. That's why I love Snows, because everybody buries him on Thermite. He's very similar to Wubs. And when you need him to click heads, magically he appears into your server. Now, there was some misplays happening by Depth, but I actually don't necessarily blame them for it. That first 2 kills that he got in that scenario, that was just Depth stacking. That's just unfortunate scenario.
Yeah.
What I can be critical of was that third kill. That third player playing over by study probably needs to say, all right, I hear you guys being pressured. I'm going to swing right now with you guys. So in that scenario, Snows would have still got that 2 collateral double kill, but he would have lost that gunfight to the player playing over in study. Unfortunately, those 3 players didn't coordinate amongst themselves, and they peaked at different intervals, or technically 2 of them picked at the same interval, and they ended up losing those gunfights. Unfortunate scenario to be in, and Dami's scenario seems to be just as unfortunate. He's trying to show us this God Malusi, but he keeps sliding down like he's on a ski lift right now. Oh, there we go. So I guess if you want to do it in your ranked games, Dami just showed you how to, and he did it for free. You don't have to subscribe to him.
Yeah, and you saw how difficult that was, Chief. Meaning, if you don't have utility like a Gun 6, or an Ash charge, or a Zephyr charge, because say you used it on vertical play down below this site, well then, you're just not going to be able to get it. You'd have to go up above to get the melee, but by that point, you're up the stairs, you're taking gunfights. It doesn't matter at all. X13, they're going to be entering up towards this master bedroom side. Dommy and Spiker will both be ready to deal with this, hopefully collecting in the same way. I want to see Depth have another dominant round. 2 easy free kills coming out, and then just playing that micro position a little bit better. Bri will have those drones going through, and we'll be looking to get this first kill against Dommy.
Adapt is definitely not a 0-4 player. He's an incredibly mechanical player, and he's just had a rough time of it. Dami is going to punch his ticket to the rough bus as well. He was taking an incredibly aggressive gunfight over by the Astro Stairs with no hope of retreating. That was a gunfight that he was guaranteed to either win or lose, and it was a loss for him because he wasn't able to return safely back to his friends on Depth. Now that's X13 with a large control of the north side of the map. There was one offsite pressure. It was Spiker. He just uses Nitrocell, but it didn't connect with anything. Depth is now double downing on this level of aggression, and it's really just not working for them. I like roams where you are designed to waste time. Right now, Depth's design is just to take gunfights, and unfortunately, it's not working for them.
Yes, J-Slime's able to collect on that again, finding Breeze and picking off the Goyo to add to the collection. Now, ABS will be burnt out and the air jab following quite quickly. Esteem, you can't be peeking that, simply put. Adapt's going to put himself on the board up against this wall, but while being opened up, you realize, Chief, this is a bad spot, but 2 kills for the price of 1. The plant's going down, J-Slime able to clean it out, but X13... That was incredibly well played, but Adapt just came in and said, right, Creedy, you talk bad about my KD. I'm gonna shut you up, simply put. But that doesn't solve those key issues you were talking about, Chief. It's coming down to this. They're playing aggression. They're playing for the gunfights that X13 are winning and currently have a 5-1 split on.
Having worked with Breeze in the past, I've always been quite impressed with his ability to address an issue after it happens. So, for example, if he lost a particular round, he'd say, we lost it for this, and this reason. And then you'd say, we're doing this, and this to address these issues. So if we go back to round 6, for example, the Astro Stairs play, it's too easy to be countered simply because a well-placed drone will say, all right, he's playing this position. Let's flank and do what we've been doing every single attack. Push in from kitchen side. Now we have this 2-pronged pinch assault going through, and Depth won't be able to win it. Spiker, same scenario. He was being flooded from technically 3 different angles if we take Ash from above, who is just starting to place a breaching charge to deal with Spiker. One, again, coming from kitchen, one coming from library. Again, a terrible position to be in. Spiker is a great player. He's not good enough to be able to challenge 3 completely different angles. Actually, there's no player currently playing in any esport that is really capable of doing that. It's just, there's not enough time when you're going against this quality of players across both rosters. The likelihood of somebody making a mistake like that is just too high. But going back to the Breeze point, what's a little concerning to me about Depth is I just don't see them making adjustments on defense because, again, having worked with Breeze in the past, I know he's more than capable of doing it. And maybe he's not in play to do it?
I'm sorry, just look at Jaeger go. Go on, J-Slime. You went through that R4C. There seems to have a little bit of a UI bug, shockingly enough. And X13, they're playing a little bit more defense. They have that bottom 4 hold. And the big thing is that if one of these players die, the same thing that happened to Spiker is going to happen.
Yeah! I was like, what are you talking about?
Yeah, look! Brian's gonna get taken down, and suddenly we're gonna see a bit more pressure put onto Crazy J-Slime. J-Slime currently at that main lobby door and on main stairs. Now, this is a strat you don't see often, Chief, and I'm quite pleased to see it here today with you. But he's also bullet holding and on the... J-Slime, the man who can do it all.
Well, he's going to have to start to do it all. 2 of his teammates have just completely fallen, and, you know, if he wants to use those bullet hole punch holes, he better do it now, because he's about a month of it left until it's corrected or changed on a technical test server, however you want to address it. So you may as well exploit that for the time being. He, on the other hand, is going to have to start to find some kills. He's sitting up here by the south stairs, and since X13's at a man disadvantage by -2, that means the players X13 have to start to get aggressive. You can't just kind of roll over on your stomach and start to die. There's the first kill going in favor of Snows, answered back by J-Slime, and converted to the advantage. Trades still work their way through. 6 players in this lobby have now lost their lives. It's a 2v2, what could be the start of the penultimate round.
Yes, right now, Depth, they're feeling that pressure. They're split apart, and most importantly, that main stairs push, it accounted for very, very little. You were able to find J-Slime and shut him down, but now you're pushing it to study. You need to get into that aviator area, but the footholds, like you talked about, they're causing the issues. They're taking away that health off his Steam. And J-Slime currently on 0 HP on the ace, and apparently called Steam is going to have to push through. Still about half HP. That's not a good position to be in when you take into account still a smoke on the board. Not J-Slime, it Snows on the flank, finding one. That's messing me up. It's going to mess me up even more. But right now, we're looking at his Steam, dealing with the smoke canister and knowing this crossfire's here. Pushes through, realizes you have to take the gunfights. You can't just leave that player on top main, on top red. It's going to be Snows just pulling back. Still has the yokais. El Chapo's going to make sure they don't need it.
Well, with that win going in the books, that's 6 rounds for X13, and that could have definitely been that penultimate round. An incredible round 7 for X13. Honestly, those first 2 kills that they lost, I almost wrote it off as a win for Depth because they had the positional advantage, they had the man advantage by +2, they started to participate in that top-down or that bottom-up utility burn where you can hear explosions going off, starting to soften up the planes and games hold for X13. And right as we said, X13, they had the minus advantage. You know what they have to do? They have to start to win gunfights. And almost like clockwork, 2 players of X13, I believe that was the Jaeger of J-Slime, as well as the Echo of Snows, just immediately swung. They took 2 gunfights and got 3 kills as a result. One of their players ended up losing their lives, so somebody who actually wasn't taking a gunfight, at least that won a gunfight, and then it was a 2v2. After that, all the hard work that X13 did and all the hard work that Depth just did was pretty much all for nil. It was back to square one, and since the defense, well, it's a game called Rainbow Six Siege, the attackers had to continue under the siege, they had to continue to push the defenders, and honestly, they lost far too many players at that point, and it was just trying to rectify the mistakes, and they weren't able to course correct. That's still X13 on match point.
Yeah, that was really rough, let's be honest. But the big thing is, when you go down below, if you can do as much vertical play as you want, you can get as much utility, but when it comes down to pushing through these choke points, it can just shut everything down. That's what we saw. Huge effort from J-Slime on there, but, well, it's a new round, it's a new dawn, it's a new day. They're going to be pushing through, looking to go for a study side take, and this makes a lot of sense. You don't have the same issues of stalling out down below, you just need to worry about 90. And you have a player of Adapt there ready to deal with that player. You put the pressure on through those two sites, and then any player that's in there trying to stay alive who isn't taking gunfights, they pull back through 19 or landing, and that's exactly what happens to them. Adapt is able to find the kill. They aren't able to get over there and take that position and take these gunfights because you risk losing too much.
So far, X13 has to recall all their troops over to their north-centered bomb site. And with everybody of depth, with control of the south, now it's the time for the drones to continue to roll their way over, taking that control and providing as much information as possible. Dami has a well-established flank drone. It sees exactly what's taking place. The X13 flank of the south stairs, it was caught out, but unfortunately there was no drones or cameras to identify the X13 had nitro cells for underneath. Now that man advantage that depth once again got on attack, it has been foregone, but Adapt, he was quite slow. No kills taking place until round 5, has now put himself almost up to the kill leader of Depth.
Yeah, he's really stepped up and said, okay, well, you know, I want to take these gunfights. I want to start winning them, and that's exactly what I think Depth need. Is just too many things going wrong for them. They need something going right. With that landing his shots, oh, that's one of those things. Snows with the shotgun doesn't spot the cross. The smoke canister is going to do the damage, but Adapt, he keeps on trucking. Finding 3, finding 4. Not the ace, as Domi's able to take it away from him, but Depth. They're able to stave off our next map of Kaf Dostoyevsky. But for how long is my big question? We saw them pushing through. We saw a lot of potential to stall out, but they didn't. They pushed through. It was down to Adapt just getting on the push and giving himself that top 5 position. But Chief, now that he's woken up, what other changes are needed by the side of Depth? Because you can't say that nothing needs to change.
Well, for them, it's just taking this map control and continue to exploit X13 and their inability to rotate safely back to their bomb site. Kraze was the opening duel in round 8. He was the Cade offsite playing over aggressive at 90, trying to slow down Depth. He wasn't quite prepared, though, for the two-pronged assault of Depth, and that was actually one of the changes that Depth needed to make, applying pressure from 2 different cutoffs. That 90 window repel was exactly what Depth needed. Now, something that was concerning to me actually on the side of X13 was the fact that they just lost gunfights outright. What we saw them do in round 7, once they realized they had the man disadvantage, they sprung into action, they put themselves in positional advantages, which means when you convert that into a gunfight, you're more likely to win it. When they went over to Trophy, a similar bomb site to play in some games, they again had the positional advantage, and more crucially, Depth was trying to apply pressure all from one side after they did a great job of that 90 pressure. They basically fatal funneled and they started to just die, but they didn't die. X13 was the one that died. Somehow the fatal funnel was reverse engineered and Depth was able to just kind of bonk X13 in the head. A mistake that sometimes just happens. Sometimes you swing a gunfight and you just end up losing.
Yeah, that was such low HP, really getting aggressive, almost as aggressive as my hair sometimes, let's be honest. Pushing through, able to find a couple of kills, catching some of these players just not even looking, and you push through, you're finding opportunities for your team, and while there is vertical play, you just can't really stop a player that is really stepping up and really just winning those gunfights. I feel like that was good. That was a strong take and a strong round win, but X13 realizing, well, they've already seen this side, and they've seen the NBA games. Just go down below. We have got the pulse. We've got a ton of C4s. Actually, this is the second time today, would you believe it, Chief, that I've seen 5 C4s in one lineup. And not the same lineup, but the philosophy is still the same with it, because you have the pulse, you feed the information, you have the top floor hold, and then you drop back. The C4s, the anchors, they go first. Your roamers on top floor, they get a kill, maybe get killed, possibly, pull back, bottom floor, then they use their C4s. Essentially, you beg for an IQ as soon as you look at this lineup and its secondary gadgets.
Before I address the Nitrocell Bonanzas, you just highlighted all 5 Nitrocells. My lovely friend, McCready, how on earth do you do your glorious hair? Since you brought it up, I gotta know.
I channel some very dark energies, my friend, so
Is that like hairspray using like 5-grade hold hairspray or something?
Well, right. The first step is your barbers. They don't open up for a good part of a year. Simply.
Yes.
Yeah, and I think you've already lost that. You lost that part. So I'll tell you in DMs, dude. That
I'm so eager for it. I think the audience also wants to know too, because I mean, hairspray for life, man. We'll let it out there because hairspray is the greatest thing to be created by human beings. I mean,
it's a
maybe
wonderful musical.
Is it a musical? Oh, that's right. That was the Abomination TV show movie thingy. Yes, I remember. It's like Glee 2.0.
Bye-bye.
Yeah. Oh, you like that? Unfortunately. Well, I can't say that X13 doesn't like losing HP off the rip. 60 seconds has been gone. No gunfights that have found casualties yet, but a nitrocell might confirm its target. It was guided by that pulse cardiac sensor, but it doesn't go through the floor. It goes over the stair railing and doesn't find its target. So basically the same point. Halfway mark, everybody's alive and well.
Yes, and the defenders, that's a good thing for them. They're pulling back the roamers, the C4s, they're going crazy. You still got 3 left, just go for it. Why not? Half the round is left in depth. They're still pushing in towards this trophy statuary. This gives time to the defenders, time to get information, time to breathe, and time to adjust. A minute 15. 5 kills. That's all it takes from pushing us to our next map. But it's all that keeps us from going to a possible 6-3. Dommy's going to start us off on that journey, able to find 1 kill, but just can't get the angle onto that player down in kitchen. Dommy just going to walk away. Realize it's beneath you. Don't bother. Don't worry about it. You're not going to win out that gunfight anymore. El Chapo still giving this information. This is what's going to be what wins the round. Bry's getting aggressive, though. Wanting to be the X Factor. Will not be aiming. Will be caught in the sprint. And as Steam catches him lacking. 3 defenders, Chief, and 30 seconds.
I have no idea why anybody would decide to sprint that corner, but mistakes were made, and X13, they are on match points. So they actually have a few rounds that they can have as a mulligan where they can make mistakes, but you can't allow depth to start to heat up. Spiker's gunfight goes in his favor. X13, more of their members are starting to crumble. 1 nitrocell between the 2 players are left alive. It won't be used on the vertical angle. The players of nitrocell is now fallen. It's all on Ellis, who isn't able to take any more than 1 gunfight. Depth, they keep themselves alive once again. A full site rotation for X13, only being able to win 1 bomb site, their primary bomb site of planes and games.
I'll give them a lot of credit for depth. Now, we said that there was a big issue of they might not step up. They might not have what it takes to really get the adaptation they're going to need on the attack. No, that's been there. They've read into the defensive strategies very nicely, and they've kind of looked at it and said, how are we going to deal with it? You know, in that round in particular, you wasted a lot of time on that vertical play, and all 5 players are able to drop down to the bottom. So getting control, that's where you do the vertical play. That's when you try and pick them apart, and you just use angles that are a lot safer for you. They benefit you a lot more. For example, that Astro upside down rappel all the way through the kitchen, it took a kill for them to realize what went wrong. We saw X13, they played it a bit too safe, maybe a bit too careless, actually. Bry running out. The player on red stairs, you got spotted. It told you got spotted. Maybe just drop down below. Just head down to the basement. Go towards Astro stairs. Be an unknown quantity. They are not willing to take a chance on. 1 more round before X13. But 1 more round, honestly. And you can see depth turning this from a couple of rounds on the attack. Really well played to a possible comeback.
Can I just say how refreshing the new, not season, but whatever meta we find ourselves in, every meta seems to have these, super flavorful names, right? Utility consumption simulator, 20-second meta, information denial, Ying Glass and Lion, or the Hell strategy, right? Whatever we're in now, this kind of mixed flavor of every one of those strategies put together, it's refreshing because operator lineups are just about as unique as possible. If you told me 6 months ago I would see an operator lineup where we wouldn't see any throwables other than frag grenades, I would say that you're lying to me, and that just doesn't make mistakes. That just doesn't make sense to me. Even with Jaeger ADSs in play, there are so many ways of bypassing them. You can even start to burn 0 cameras. You can, burn those concussions of the lifeline like you did back in the day. Now, you have to guarantee that you're alive and well. Adapt, the wielder of that lifeline, is currently down.
Oh,
And
no.
LS is just going to finish him off PM style with Toxic Gas. And, well, part of your ADS burn, even though it's not as important as it once was, is off the board.
Yeah, it still needs to happen. Now, J-Slime on this main stairs hasn't found a kill in a while. Spiker is able to do exactly that. J-Slime holding the main stairs is going to be huge. L-Set. Okay, thank you, Chief. I don't know these teams as well, so it's wonderful to have somebody like you just to guide my hand. You know, you're the kickstart to my terrorism.
Oh,
I'm gonna call this the LATAM meta in celebration of our new LATAM overlords, Ninjas in Pajamas, but because they play it so well, it's a meta that finally fits them. It's aggression. It rewards teams that can coordinate and get aggressive very early or very late and just win gunfights. Right now, though, we're looking at depth. We're wasting time. They're trying to do vertical play, but with a minute 20 left, you've got to stop it. Oh, you still have those Banshees, those ADSs, those shields. They're not as big an issue, like you said, but with Study opening up, you're going to have to deal with something at some point. Minute down on the clock, J-Slime is looking to be a big issue. Doesn't have a shield to play behind, but does have this hard wall and the quick peek. You know that Breeze just wants to peek it, but knows they can't. And J-Slime holds the angle, wastes the time, and most importantly, denies a point of access.
Look at those cameras for depth. It's full range of information. Every single rotation that X13 could use is being grabbed by those cameras. And no grab being made by depth, unfortunately, at least onto J-Slime, who was on that prone angle. He takes a lot of HP loss, but he rotates back over to his bomb snipe. Snows in their hand isn't looking too well, down but not out, in a dangerous position. But the fangs are being shown by both of these teams. Spiker and Breeze finds 2 kills. Now it's on LS. It's an SMG-11 Pro. His final Toxic Babe has now been used. Stuck in a crossfire in a pinch. He doesn't know where to look at all. He looks straight into his opponent. Eyes lock, and Breeze wins the gunfight.
Yes, ice in his veins, pulling the trigger, ending that round, and I think we can safely say Depth, the redemption arc, is fully on its way, but just not there yet. X13, you've been giving away a couple of rounds that you shouldn't lose by now, and I'm not okay with it. Simply put, you need to step up.
So I want to say how smart of a play that Depth and Breeze had on them pushing up those main south stairs. It's something really small. So over by U-Bar, it's a very common angle to have an SMG-11 Pro make a small murder hole looking to those stairs. And you know what Breeze did? He actually ash charged that position, not to destroy utility, but just to have that player hear the ash charge hit the floor underneath him, and it forced him to either stand his ground and take a lot of HP damage or run away. That player of X13 elected to run away, and it allowed Depth 2 players to push up those main stairs. The X13 player returned to that vertical angle, but he didn't know the stairwell was now occupied by Depth. That forced a gunfight that J-Slime almost lost, and that's why I love Rainbow Six Siege. It's small details like that. Again, everybody thinks ash charges are designed to destroy utility. Malusi Wub Wub instantaneously destroyed, but there are so many more creative ways that allows teams to take map control without actually destroying utility. Case in point, Breeze. I was critical of him earlier for really not orchestrating his defense as well as I know that he could, but so far on attack, he's doing exactly what I know he's capable of, and it's really refreshing to see.
Yeah, I feel like it's just having those little smart plays. That's something that we need to see X13 just bring up a little bit more right now. Depth, yet again, they're going for what could be another successful attack on the Aviator Games, this time with that Master 90 push. I mean, you're looking at this push and you're saying, well, you have the Yana, you can use those Geminis, but why? You have drones moving through, you're on a roll, your mechanics are landing. And I mean, I'd be using a Gemini and having maybe an Ash follow it up, but, well, you know, there's a reason for that. Adapt is setting up this flank and watching the red stairs. Doesn't spot Snows, but the drone is going to be coming by either way. It will hear that Guman and will say, okay, be warned, somebody is nearby. And he's probably realizing, go down below and deal with it. Utility will be at 90 is going to be taken almost effortlessly with the cam being taken off the border. And, well, Chief, it simply says to me, X13, they're not really applying a lot of pressure towards some critical areas on the map. maybe they don't want to contest it, but maybe this might be a case of they're not comfortable. Now, Bri is going to say that they don't want to because they got something else in mind. The free-place C4 is right there, and it will find its mark. Adapt, the player that needed to step up and will be taken off the board.
Both of these rosters are incredible with their coordination. That's another Nitrocell that it's nothing but just physical callouts between teammates. Hey, there's a dude over by this pillar. No yellow pings went out. It was just teammates being able to be on the exact same wavelength. Spiker did that earlier, back on this exact same bomb site. But what I do find interesting about X13, the only time that they won a defense that was back in round 7, and we saw a radically different lineup. We saw Echo in play for Snows. Now he's electing to bring out the Legion. Now he's joined the armada of players running the greatest weapon in game and the greatest optic in game, the Red Dot. And you know what? That's just a sign that he's probably going to win every gunfight he gets into in the future.
Well, Jason's going to win one of his own, really realizing, okay, right, we've given away too many rounds. I'm going to get aggressive. I'm going to take away your steam. That ace isn't opening up any more lines of sight. Now, the rest of depth, they're playing plus 90. They have that steady sight. There are options on the board. This is far from a lost round so far. But Hellset is going to make sure it's just a little bit harder. It's playing in the vault, ready to catch another player. It's going to be Breeze. And now Spikers all on their own, trying to push through. But 2 guns will take away Spikers. None. X13, they're going to win 7-4 on Villa. Took them a while to close it down, and it makes me a little bit curious about Kav Dostoyevsky. How are we going to see this going if maybe X13 don't have the finishing power that, well, they need?
I will have to say, that was a great map 1 for both rosters. I think you and I both, McCready, were starting to get a little concerned for Depth, but Depth had a good run there in the end, as you were mentioning, 3 rounds in a row. The problem was they kind of buried themselves going 5-1 at the half. It's a very difficult recovery, and particularly when you lose that next round going 6-1. I mean, you have your back against the wall. You have no margin for error. And you know what? We saw the professionalism of Depth really start to play as a factor because they didn't want to make mistakes, and they really didn't. Unfortunately, that final round 11 came down to them not winning gunfights. But again, an incredible almost comeback, but almost doesn't count in Rainbow Six. You have to fully cross that finish line.
Yes, indeed you do. Now, we're almost done, but we haven't crossed the finish line ourselves because we still have at least one more map coming up. That's going to be Kav Dostoyevsky after a quick break. So grab a snack, grab a drink, but be back here very, very shortly. Bye-bye. James Bond right there. Welcome back to the Upsurge Premier League. I'm McCready. Joining me is Chief. We've just seen Villa, and well, it was a while ago, Chief, but just to refresh your memory, 7-4 to X13 depth. They had a good run trying to bring it back, but at the end of the day, it just wasn't enough. Is Kaf Dostoyevsky going to be any different?
It has to be different for depth. They wanted to keep themselves in the forward momentum of achieving that coveted goal of grand finals. And that means they have to win Cafe and they have to win the decider map of Clubhouse. Now, we saw that there was mistakes being made by depth. Fortunately for them, they just had a 15-minute long break. One of their players was dropped. They had to pull an emergency sub. Rice is now playing for Adapt. And basically everything that we learned from Villa has been completely forgotten because, well, there's a new player in the lobby, and there on the right-hand side of your screen, Rice is now in play for Adapt. And again, who knows what's going to happen at this point. McCready is muted, and he just doesn't want to talk to me at this point. You know, he just doesn't want to be friends with me. He's still muted. He's not muted in Discord. He's not muted in any of our channels. We just can't hear him. He just doesn't want to talk to me. Maybe he unplugged his mic. Maybe he ripped the XLR cable out of his... Oh!
My Discord died. The internet connection took an L. I thought it was you, Chief. I thought it was the other way around.
I thought it was you!
Right. My point that I was saying while I thought you died, Chief, was that when Adapt started struggling, that's when they started losing rounds. When he woke up, that's when they started winning. So this sub, I don't think it's a super sub. I think it's a shot to the foot, if anything.
I mean, Rice is a good player. So there's that moving forward. He has experience playing with at least just Breeze. He may have played with the other three as well. So there's at least that, because we've seen this before. If we go to, again, Synthetic, we saw Proco having to sub in. He had the X13 experience, the OG X13 experience with Poison. So that transition, that substitute, wasn't really that big of a change. Now, sure, you don't know the strats. You don't know the, how the team's going to be handling, but at least you know one of your players, and you can kind of have that predetermined synergy, and that pre-established synergy is probably a better way of putting it. And that's something that you can't overlook, because sometimes you have, coaches step in as a substitute. And while the coaches may know the strategy, they may be a good former player, they may just not have that same level of synergy. Not saying that the coach isn't a good player, but still, you can't undercount or can't write off how important it is to be that cohesive five-man team.
Yeah, it's just simple. If you're playing together all the time, if you're always playing, if you're always working together, you're running the same strats, it's a lot easier to work together and know exactly what's happening at every single moment than as a coach who's looking at it. You should know what's going on, but honestly, you look at it and you think, I think this sub isn't a benefit. I think this is a bit of an issue. But, well, we're jumping into the game anyway. We're going to find out at least. X13, this is a really strong opportunity. Kaf Dostoyevsky on the defense. The opposition have just had a substitute, which was their driving force in those last couple of rounds that Depth won. I can't stress that enough. Adapt really stepped up, but is no longer here. Ace is going to get taken away. That ranged hard breach is just not going to happen anymore, and Habana will still be on the board, so not as impactful a ban as he may want, but Thatcher may get through.
If Thatcher gets through, I might rip out my hair. I mean, there's a reason why the dude's banned all the time. Having your electronic gadgets on at all times is a great thing to have. When an EMP grenade turns it off, I mean, all hell breaks loose. Your entire strategy is technically disabled for, 10 seconds. It won't be able to do what it was designed to. So, surprise, surprise, something that nobody has ever seen before, a Thatcher ban. Now, Goyo bans are a hallmark of a different meta. We are talking back on Villa, the OG meta, utility consumption simulator. Well, all of those Goyo shields, the two that he now has, I mean, that just increases the surface area of things that the attacking IGL needs to deal with. He now has to break down 2 different shields, and When you come down to a final execute, if there's still shields in your way, that changes how you, well, end up going for that execute. And our final ban, all about information. Valkyrie has received a lot of bans, not only in professional play, but if you saw the new patch notes, she's being banned a ton, even in ranked.
I think it sounds like he's just not being picked as much because Echo isn't invisible. You don't need that IQ. You don't need to go down below to clear utility. But the big thing I want to talk about Goyo is the map that we're on is Kaf Dostoevsky. This is a map in which the attackers, they only really get to gain ground when the defenders give it away. When the defenders have their utility destroyed, then they pull back or they move to another position where they can hold them up. The lack of Goyo shields from the attackers is simply saying we don't want to deal with that. We don't want to have to commit so much utility, so much time to say clear out Pixel, Chief. Only to have to wait that little bit longer and then have 20 seconds to deal with this. If we get rid of this, they don't have as many shields to work with, most importantly. They don't actually have any on the board right now, but they don't have that longevity. They can't do the same kind of setup. You see, Goyo used a lot for a shield in Pixel, a shield in Freezer, and a bit of support. No, Mirror's being brought instead, a long line of sight into that piano, and I think a bathroom position is going to be made there as well, and by the looks of this utility, it is going to be the case. This is a setup I quite like. You can get your eyes onto the default position, and you can still have a commanding presence without shields.
And there was kind of this black hole in that operator ban phase. It was Mira making its way through, but I didn't want to talk about that point yet because Mira is a very interesting operator. She always finds herself going down two different paths because if you aren't scrimming with a Mira, there's no way you ever bring her out in a live match because she requires so much utility to set up right, so many reinforcements. There is a long list of things that need to be done to make sure those Miras are effective. So if she does make it through a ban phase, it's on the defense. Do we have a Mira strat? If we do, we select her. If we don't, we just pretend she's banned and never address the issue until we have to deal with it on attack. And it seems at least X13, as well as Depth, were calculated in these bans because Depth, they bring out an operator that hasn't received a lot of bans lately, that Goyo, and X13 removes a different information operator over the Mira. So that says X13 was more than prepared for Mira, and that little different washroom setup where they have that long line of sight looking into trash as well as that B box, it's a perfect position to be in.
Yeah, I really like this mirror setup. I like it. It's a setup that has kind of... You take away the Goyo, so you put the mirror in. That's the kind of energy. Now this... On that pixel, on that piano, oh, that is heartbreaking. That breach got bugged out. You didn't really get it as close as it needed to be, which means you don't have the option of going through that. You have to commit more utility, which with the Steam, you can't really do that. You don't have an ace, that's banned. You don't have a thermite because you overexpose if you try and use it on this site. So you have to go through that cigar shop. Doing so, you expose yourself to this very setup we saw and the two roamers down below, and I'll let you take a look for yourself what secondary gadgets they have. Now, a lot of the utilities taken away as C4 will be ripped and Grace is ready to use it, but they're waiting. They're biding their time, Chief, and that's going to be what wins them this round.
It's a slow control for Depth, and the player that was spearheading that control, Rice, and now substitute for Adapt, is the first one removed. The second Nitro Cell will find its target as Steam loses HP, but he doesn't lose his life. Now with control fully established on the west side of the map, Depth is now just going to have to push in through the no man's land. They're going to have to blow the whistle. They're going to have to call for the artillery strike to try to cross against that Mira. But his team just works his way through the long U-bar. Spiker down but not out. Members of Depth starting to drop one by one. They're becoming an endangered species here on Cafe, as there's only one player alive and active. That is Breeze. He's still over by you. He has a crossfire into bar one. That's not going to be enough for him since he's the only one holding that crossfire. The Maestro absolutely potatoes. Breeze wasn't much better, but now, oh, he's going against three, and he doesn't accomplish that goal whatsoever. X13 on a perfect mirror window strategy stopped the onslaught of Depth.
Yes, well, it was unfun to look at if you are a Depth supporter. They really sold out and they tried to push through, and they just hemorrhaged bodies. It was horrible. I think a big thing for me is that Esteem on the Habana was still holding that red stairs. Maybe they weren't feeling that same kind of coordination. Breeze dropped, and You're still holding the angle. You're not immediately looking ready to push forward. And it's a very small thing I'm nitpicking, only because I've seen it, Chief. And I feel like it might be indicative of a bigger thing now. You realize there's a lot of C4s down below, and you're maybe realizing there's a couple of roamers. You might be droning them, seeing the commitment of these reinforcements down below. The only thing it means is that somebody is there. Now, what I quite like is the fact that we're seeing this mirror being 6-picked to a Maestro. Depth, they know the mirror isn't a fake pick. They know that X13 want to win it, want to bring it. So that gives you a lot of freedom rather than change it. You bring the Evil Eye, you stick it down nice in the corner, and you set up for the kitchen side. X13, good crossfires, good coordination, keep it going.
Well, after that successful win, a bomb site change downstairs. Shotgun holes being made. Everything looks just about as common as you'd expect from a roster. More nitro cells to be seen. Now, Depth, they lost a lot of players to those nitro cells, and I'd be a little bit more careful moving forward. Again, the thing with this bomb site is it's imperative that Depth at least has some vertical presence, because if, well, the attackers don't establish vertical presence, the defenders will gladly take that invitation. They'll set up that hold, looking all the way again over to the west, which seems to be a theme here in Cafe. Whoever holds the west tends to be the roster that has the most control, because once you have the west, you can apply pressure. Same philosophy with Piano upstairs. Now Depth being allowed to leave their spawn, they're going to be slow up to the building, but Craves is too slow to pull this trigger on his spawn peak, ending up losing his life. Once again, X13, we've seen this before. The man disadvantage is not a good place to be, and he got wall banged because solo Bake was left soft. One of the most important things in this game is to reinforce that if you're going to be playing Bakery at all. Not sure if he was just reinforcing, rotating back, but again, he was on an island by himself, and this actually allowed Depth to go for linear execute. Well, temporarily at least, until Dami lost that gunfight.
Yes, Elside able to find that kill. Well, you think about this, Zafia, those Evil Eyes get a lot stronger. You're relying on Rice and Breeze to step up and take them out. Or maybe even Spiker, but he requires the committal of a drone. X13, well, they're just wasting their time. You took a little bit of information of their own, of those Evil Eyes, and while you are spotting out where Bry is, you just waste your time. You wait, you let them just commit fully. A C4 will go off, and it's going to make the vertical play. That's going to make prep even harder to push through, Chief, halfway through the round. And even though you're spotting them elusive walk away, they're still not comfortable to push through. The two options are you go into prep and take the vertical, or you go through the breach and take the Ulver. And as Rupert said, at Ulver Sings, Rice needs to deal with this vertical play, but Prime isn't going to. Here's that utility being committed and needs to find a kill, knows they need to find it, but just not going to show up at the right moment. So taking that position can be huge. The push, though, it's coming out from Depth, and it's going to be Breeze leading it.
There was a lot of, well, vim at the start of this round. It's been pretty quiet. The first minute was crazy. Players lost their lives. And the next minute, nothing has really happened. Now we're in the final minute. And the attackers at Depth need to change gears. They need to start to play more aggressive and continue to take gunfights. Spiker, who got the opening kill, as life has now been lost. J Slime playing an incredibly long angle. Once again, proning with that Jaeger. We saw him successful in that exact same style of play on Villa. But he hasn't yet found that here on Cafe. Still 30 seconds left on the clock. A lot of yellow pings to work for. As Depth, they have full information of X13. X13 starts to bunker down over to the east side of the map. But since they're so passive, this allows this team to start to plant behind the bomb chassis. Springs into action for X13, but they don't find their gunfights. It's now on Elisette against 3. Finds one. A headshot to be answered, but an SMG-11 also answers him back. Depth, they weren't able to find their answer in round 1, but in round 2, a perfect execute.
Yeah, very nicely done from them. They pushed in, they realized, okay, right, you put the pressure on with the Ash, you try and just make them uncomfortable in that mining area on the side of Bry. You pull back that prep, it opens up. That's what we saw the Sledge and the Habana. They pushed in, they were ready to explode. The drone was there, it got past the defenders, and that's where they picked it apart. That was a very nicely executed round coming out from them, but X13, returning to this bottom floor, need to find some adaptations, and I know at least one reinforcement that I changed, Chief, and I think you've already pointed it out. It's got to be that small bakery. That needs to be taken away so that you can do whatever you need to do, whether put the utility on that prep wall, reinforce it if it's late, get aggressive in bakery, no matter what you want to do, if it involves bakery or small bake, that reinforcements needs to be done. Question is, will it be done?
Well, if you're not playing in bakery, like you mentioned, just don't reinforce it. If you're, late reinforcing, we'll say prep, maybe you should have that as your priority so you don't get wallbanged. Again, I'm okay if it's left unreinforced. It just depends on the scenario in which it goes down. Now, Cray is reinforcing this now. I don't think he's going to get wallbanged. So we can all wipe our brows, at least for now, and say that he's one safe man. At least safe for the next few minutes. Because in Rainbow Six Siege, you're likely to end up losing your life, but since it's a video game, you get to respawn. Now, Depth is going to spawn into the server momentarily, and they're going to start their endeavor once again. A successful attacking execute in their previous round. We were highlighting how players need to have that vertical play. Depth actually had a very successful linear take. Now, I do have a suspicion that it was because of that spawn peak. At least it helped facilitate that swift execute, because they didn't really need any extra minigames. They didn't have to remove the Kaid claws in the walls because they killed Kaid off the rip. So now, they're a little bit slower, but they do have a Maverick to be had. And actually, that's a change. We saw Habana in round 2. But now with Maverick in play, you can just make as many holes in the wall as you want. Take as many different challenges you want because of that extra utility.
Yes, with that Kaid on the board, still, you kind of look at it like, well, no, first of all, the Electroclaw's gone, but an easy counter is going to be that Maverick Torch craze. They go both ways. He's going to remind Breeze as he takes away the sledge, but that breach, it's still going to get Maverick open, and even if you don't want to do it, like prep, that's just going to be sightlines being made. Now, Crazy knows exactly what this Maverick's going to be. He has the audio cue. He has the information. He has the game sense. Do they have the aim? Do they have the preparation, the reaction? Because that's not open just yet. Alsat is nearby in prep waiting, and that's going to be Crazy. We'll find a second kill. The wall stays shut.
That was a mistake by Depth. They only brought one hard breacher. The hard breacher has been lost. The linear execute that Depth had in round 2, it is no longer an option. They have to find a way of repositioning, and that's going to come through their extension upstairs. Clear out that vertical hold. Well, that means that defense won't be able to sit on the west bomb site. Now you can then replicate that. The problem is there's 70 seconds left in this round. Vertical pressure is going to be very difficult to achieve at this margin, but Snow is playing super aggressive, converted into more kills from Depth as Spiker collects 2. Felled in the trade, but still, X13, their huge man advantage. It has now dropped down to only a +1. Dami and Rice, the 2 primary entries, the players that you want to have in the dying seconds of the round, are going to be forced to save the day for Depth. A crossfire established. Dami now off the board. Rice is going to follow. X13, they hold the fort in round 3.
Yes, you said that, you lost that player advantage. There's only one player advantage for the side of X13. Well, it played in their favor. It was an investment, and it paid off in a much earlier way than you would expect it to. Now, Depth, those last 2 players, they were stuck in really awkward positions, multiple lines of sight, multiple defenders trying to peek them, and in each instance, there was a case of there was refrag opportunities. You saw that there was the smoke. The smoke was peeking the Zephyr and was able to put pressure onto the Ash as well. But then there was also the player right there in VIP able to do exactly the same, but focuses more entirely on the White Stairs player. You got a player in Codes able to focus entirely on that Zephyr, and then you still have those defenders, that one player, that little linchpin in the middle, just to make sure they don't get together. You find those kills, one-on-one gunfights, the diffuser goes down, and suddenly X13, you collapse on that White Stairs player. They don't have the time to rotate. It was close. It was hairy, Chief. I'm going to be honest. Like you said, they gave away that advantage, but it wasn't for net. They got something out of it, and a round win, well, you've got to take it, especially on Kaf Dostoevsky. 5 more rounds. That could end it all right now. And you would
I'm really hoping that Depth learns their lesson from their previous round and decides, all right, X13, I respect your double mirror windows that are facing the west and the north side. We are going to respect it so much, we're just going to avoid it altogether. And we're going to push in through Reading Room and start to remove your Cocktail hold. Because if Cocktail becomes compromised, then X13 won't be able to play those mirror windows out comfortably because X13 then can rotate up both stairwells or drop a hatch, rappel in through the east windows. And now the players behind the mirror windows are going to be in two different gunfights. One of them, they're going to have their face covered by the mirror window and that reinforcement. The other one, they're going to be fully exposed from the rear. A Windstorm Nitrocell finds its target. Breeze takes all but 1 HP, 99 HP removed, probably actually 97 HP removed, but crucially, he's alive and well. That sledgehammer as well as those frag grenades can have impact in this round now.
Not really well. I don't think that's the way I'd describe it, because you're looking at this sledge. If that ash gets taken away, well, your second entry, your flex player isn't going to be comfortable. They're not going to want to just run in charging to win their gunfights. And, most importantly, a breeze can take him out. Now, and obviously what I've done there. Brian's playing down below, has a C4 and the impact. Just one impact could deliver that killing blow. So, if you are the player of Breeze, you want to be careful. No C4 of Craze, so, you know, not going to get confirmed, but you've got to rotate a player around. That's wasting time. And you look at the time that's on the board, you look at the time that hasn't been used by Depth to clear out these bathroom and freezer players, and suddenly, Chief, it looks very, very unconvincing for Depth at the moment. Craze will get droned out and takes away one and decides to back up. Why not?
I was strange of the situation. Breeze decides to speak Skylight. He goes down but not out, losing that temporary engagement to the Vector. And now that he's been rezzed, he's now on 20 HP instead of 3 HP. So actually, Depth may have been the winner, because if you remember, what, 2 years ago, we had something called HP resetting, where you can reset your players to 50 HP, you just down them.
Yeah.
Well, that's not a factor anymore, because Depth, well, they've actually gone down. Two of their players, Rice and Dami, we are highlighting them back in round 3 of being the primary entries that were going to spearhead the potential victory in round 3. Well, they're the first ones to fall. A Steam is going to rectify that, though, playing primary hard support. He finds Craze, who got the down into Breeze in the earlier engagement. 35 seconds left in this round. Things are still not looking particularly good, though, for Depth, and they're going to have to start to move fast.
Yes, J-Slime will take some damage, but able to find Spiker. Looks to Breeze as well, but just isn't able to find it. It's all down to a Steam and Breeze. Yet again, a 2 versus 4. Soon to be a 2 versus 3 if the Steam can land the shots. They're just not going to hit right now. And Breeze is stuck with very low HP. Elset will find the Steam, and suddenly it's all a formality for Snows. X13. They pick up another round, and in doing so, they further that lead. But you've got to think, okay, Chief, we're approaching the split now. What needs to happen? X13, they've got a couple of rounds, but is this going to be their attacking side as well? Or are we going to see the same thing from Villa?
For Depth, they need to be more dynamic with their executes. We're seeing too much of the traditional style of play. Just push in through piano, remove utility, put somebody over in the white corner window, trying to bait out a gunfight. And unfortunately, X13, they are just absorbing so much time, so much utility that strategy from Depth isn't working out well. Depth needs to start to modify what they're doing, push underneath through reading room, directly deal with this pressure, try to deal with those mirror windows. Put yourself in a position that X13 is going to be uncomfortable in. Now, however, one of the problems with that was X13 was actually prepared for that contingency. You could tell that by the reinforcements that they had on that second floor. That wall that is currently being reinforced by Crazed. Actually, no, that's not. That's Bry that's currently reinforcing. Currently over here on this reading room bomb site, this north wall, well, it was also reinforced in the previous round. Why? Because if Depth did elect to go for that second floor clear, well, they would have had a little bit more of a hard time because X13 could have roamed a lot more comfortably. Again, X13 was prepared for every single execute, but still, I would like to see Depth at least try something that X13 wasn't as comfortable with. And again, if you flooded that second floor, I can promise you X13 would have given it up relatively quickly. The first time we're seeing the tertiary bomb site is now. It only took up to round 5. And we're going to, again, see more interesting operators. Ella is now in the lineup. If you want a deployable shield, Ella's your girl for it. However, I'd still gravitate more towards Smoke for the deployable shield unless you really want those Grismont mines to be an early indication.
Well, what I'd actually like, and what I do like to see on this lineup, is that Ella's shotgun. Now, suddenly, I'm not thinking about Pixel, okay? I'm thinking more about maybe that lumber area. But no, you've got Mirror playing there. Instead, you've got Craze. Be crazy to play anywhere other than Cocktail. You have the shield, you have ADSs and support, and a mirror window. You can get aggressive as you want. As aggressive as you want, swing whatever you want. That FO12 shotgun, unless they're already firing, you're very unlikely to win that gunfight if you're approaching Craze. But, well, X13, they have to keep this crossfire. They can't be caught off guard. And right now, Unset is at very high risk of killing. So, Rice and Domi, they're pushing forward. They're going to try and make a line of sight. Breeze can get a pinch with them. And, well, there's going to be Breeze kicking things off, finding El Chapo.
The player that was down but not out in round 4, well, he finds that opening duel, and good pressure for Depth. They have full control of the West once again. They're actually starting to open up that A bomb site walls, the ones that were left unreinforced. Now, that's fine and dandy. Problem is, look at all these footholes and murder holes created by X13. It is like putting a giant bowl of cat food out in the middle of the open, and the cats want to rush it because they're curious. You can't be curious in this scenario. You have to be methodical and calculating, because if you just say, oh, hey, look, the bomb site's open, and you run in, you're going to get absolutely slaughtered. You have to make sure you remove the pressure. That pressure is stemming from the White stairs. That frag grenade that just went out over by White, well, it was designed to alleviate that pressure. More members, however, of X13 are starting to fall off this face of the earth. That A bomb site is starting to look more and more appetizing for Depth.
Yes, now Bright holding on the White stairs and the player in that laundry. They're going to be incredibly crucial when it comes to this execute. Domi pushing forward. The smoke grenades will go off, and Rice, he's going to kick things up, pushing up ahead. Snows the one to find the kill. Snows wants to find another one. The C4 will go out. Breeze gets the kill. Rice with one of their own. It's all down to J Slime. He has to come around this 9th area. The footholds that you said, they're going to be huge, but the pre-fire of Domi gets the round win for Depth. The explosive execute, they pushed in, they got right up against that wall, expecting that C4, Chief, because, let's be honest, you don't see a setup like this where there isn't a C4 being used there. So they pushed up, they got right up against the wall, and they won the gunfight, only losing one player. But that was the tertiary bomb site, Chief. We return to Kitchen.
That's an interesting round for both teams, and Depth had the mastery pretty much the entire time. After taking that opening duel and winning it, X13 was forced in this interesting position where they were trying to hold upstairs as well as the second floor at the exact same time. And it was almost like the Tide, where you'd see X13 put emphasis over on the White stairs to hold that dining room plant, and then they'd move their troops back upstairs to Cocktail to hold the push coming in from Depth, clearing that 3rd floor. But they being X13, never really put emphasis in both areas at the same time. Again, it's a metaphor of the Tide. They were pushing up the beach and then back down the beach. And during those swings, you could actually see Depth grab more map control every single time, until they had so much control of Cocktail, they just literally walked down the White stairs, took gunfights being facilitated by the fragmentation grenades, forcing X13 to retreat more and more. And at that point, it was a 3v5, and Depth just flooded the bomb site. They used those smoke grenades to cut off all of the angles that X13 worked so hard to set up, whether or not there's a footholds, whether or not there's a white holes, and then X13 just ended up losing gunfights at the end. They're trying to collect kills with nitro cells, but it was just pure desperation at that point. A good attempt, and again, I respect the strategy that X13 was doing, trying to hold every scenario, but they need to just relegate players to holding certain positions. Say, all right, this is your spot, enjoy holding it.
I feel like Craze maybe shouldn't have got so aggressive. Hold that position and say, okay, well, there's someone reading. Let's deal with it. Anyway, that's the last round. We're going to focus on this one. Hatches, oh, they're going to get opened up. Shockingly enough, I know. It's very little before scene strategy, as I'm sure you're aware, Chief, being a veteran of the Siege competitive scene. And you probably haven't seen this one before. Brian has decided in their strat book, they're going to get a kill. You take away Spiker. Spiker's had a really strong impact so far, playing the Twitch. Cade claws, mirror windows, any piece of utility just taken away, and you have to look at that and simply say, well, that's an impact kill. Thank you for coming to my TED Talk, Chief.
All right, I have a confession I need to make, McCready.
Yeah.
Every time I see his name Bry, I just assume it's Brian because that's what my name is spelled Bryan. And I see the X as a Y and the I and the 3 or the 1 and the 3 as being like the N, and it keeps tripping me out. And I know it's so wrong, but yet it feels so right.
And swiftly moving on, Death are going to be joining down the staircases. They're going to be looking at X-filling or X-filling, expediting their push onto this side, probably to get away from that joke as well. But the vertical play is something that can't be rushed. You're getting that line of sight, and that little reaching charge you saw Domi put down, this is the line of sight. You cover that double door, you can shut this site into. Think about that villa. Think about having control of 90. Think about maybe in Clubhouse having control of blue. You can shut down so many opportunities for these defenders just by having that little bit of control. White says is another crucial piece of the puzzle. You push down, you can open up that freezer, but you have to deal with a lot of defensive pressure. That is going to be the ABSs and Shield VIP.
Vertical pressure, while a lot of that ceiling has been removed, it's not quite enough for depth, as they just want to remove every single ounce of it. X13, they know this, and they're going to try to hinder that at every single twist and turn. Not only they're attempting to take gunfights on that first floor, we saw Craze sneak his way up the red stairs. He did shoot some rounds, he lost some HP, but that stalled out more time. Now depth is in the dying parts of their round. They have to start to come down these stairwells, and with the VIP held by a deployable shield, it's almost impossible for them to do so. They have to start to burn this utility. A flood into meat and a close gunfight for Rice. He bypasses Mute altogether. But that was the smoke that just lost his life. An incredible misplay by them. But X13, they're still the sharp end of the stick. It's all tied up on the man count department, but the diffuser has just been placed. Depth is in a perfect position. The onslaught continues, and now it's just all Craze against 2. The reverse Ono card slaps X13 in the face. And an incredible comeback. They had a miraculous round, and they still win it outright. Round 6 in favor of depth.
Oh, the vertical play. It was beautiful, Chief. You looked at that. As soon as the plant went down, Rice pushed in, found a kill onto smoke. And huge kill you were able to get. You got refrag, but that smoke being taken away, the plant goes down in cover. And in cover of what, you may ask? The vertical play. The slideshow of Craze still above. Actually, it wasn't Craze. It was Breeze. But still, the sledge of Breeze is playing above and covering that angle and making sure that as soon as that plant goes down, Esteem is covered. You push up, you have to take this gunfight. You have to deal with not only Esteem, but Breeze. Honestly, that was well executed. That wasn't a chaotic round if you were on depth. That was planned. That was coordinated. X13, though, that was chaos. But essentially, it's depth saying, there is a weakness. I'm pushing in. You have to be in the right position. And that's the synergy you talked about. Simple put, Chief. The flip side, a 3-3 split, and you've got a feel for X13.
A mistake was made by X13. Now we have to see how they are in their competitive mindset. Are they so shaken by that loss that they're just going to crumble and forego Cafe? I highly doubt it. They are competitive players, and again, they want to enter in this grand final. So you write it off as a mistake. Mistakes happen. Even the highest level play, if you're watching SI over the weekend, I mean, you know for a fact that even the highest level pro players, they make mistakes, whether or not it's clicking heads, whether or not it's positional change, or just getting sieged. The timing error. Why we saw Ellis lose that gunfight is he was throwing out a smoke grenade as Ash pushed by him, and he couldn't ADS in time. He couldn't pull the trigger in time. Again, it's happened to pro players before, and it's going to happen to you in a ranked game, in a comp game. You know, mistakes were made, but X13, they need to just recover. They need to pull out this tailspin. It's not much of one. The flat spin is super easy for them to recover. It's going to happen now on attack as they start to execute on that third floor, working their way all the way down to the eventual hold of Kitchen.
To be fair, though, when you're in that position, do you really think about, Ash about to rush in while you're putting smoke canisters out? One thing you might think about is a very aggressively positioned Vigil. Looking to try and find a kill. Spike is going to be able to get one. Domi falls, but Royce is there with the refrag, and the Vigil finds the kill. 3 versus 4 in favor of Depth, who have decided, you know what? I could go to Clubhouse, Chief. I want to do it. Brian is going to be walking into reading now and look to clear things out, but it's set up in a case that these Romans could be anywhere, but you don't know. You have to act like they are everywhere and anywhere. Because you don't have that information. The visual scan is only going to add to this confusion. You know you need to roam through your everything. You need to drone it. In the places with this visual scan, you've got to go in there and face check it. That buys you so much time to really shore up the defense on site, and with the player advantage, it's looking great for depth, simply put.
Honestly, that was a 4-man roam on the 3rd floor, and it's a first floor defense. And I can hear the strategy that Depth said. All right, Rice, rat. Do the most obnoxious rat that you could possibly be. And he said, hold my beer, and he sat over my ticket. Dami may have lost that gunfight, but actually he's the reason why Rice got that kill, because X13 just assumed that top floor was cleared. That's a great strategy. I mean, look at where Depth is. They have the man advantage. There's 45 seconds left on the clock. We're just seeing X13 start their vertical play. They haven't accomplished any hard breaching yet. And it's now the do or die hour. They have to start to get faster on these executes. Now, fortunately, Snows is a good support player, holding an incredibly long angle. Got gifted a free kill, but he still needs more kills.
Yes, holding a long angle, making a defender have to hold those cameras. Pushing forward, though, Breeze is going to be holding the angle in a way that you have to push it. Oh, but Bry isn't able to land the shot. Breeze is going to get 2. I didn't even know what happened. Yes, Craze finds a refrag, picks up the diffuser, but 2 defenders holding the angle. Spiker, he's there, he's covering it. Craze is pushing in, gonna try something, but will not find it. Breeze, how do you get away with that, man? Honestly, I might need that for some ranked games, dude.
You know, I think there's a team kill that took place there. So my guess was Snows as well as a Zofia decided to swing at the same time. That's Bri playing Zo, and they crashed onto Coach Check. The problem was Snow was just mag dumping, and when you're shooting bullets down range and your, well, a fellow attacker is also coming from the exact same point, there's a high likelihood that you could shoot your teammate. And we saw Bri get downed, and Snows was killed by Breeze. So Breeze just got 2 free kills there. And I have to say, everything in that round for Depth was chaos. And you called it perfectly. It's the exact word that you used, because every single rat corner that they used, they created so much chaos. X13 made errors on the droning that happened by that first death that they had over by ticket. Sure, they got the opening duel on Dami, while they never really did their true due diligence droning out all those nooks and crannies. And that's a problem with the Vigil static. It puts you in an awkward position as an IGL. You say, all right, I respect the Vigil static, and I'm just going to hold my drones in these positions and re-drone it once it's gone? Or do I just continue my forward momentum and just hope that I don't get, you know, slammed in the end by that position? Again, it's a very awkward position to be in, because that Vigil static could waste up to 15 seconds for free. Plus, you have to start your droning again, and if you're slow in the droning, he could just, well, recloak himself, and you're back in the exact same place as you were earlier for not a lot of real estate.
Yeah, and I feel like it's something you see a lot of the times in maybe unranked and ranked, when you see people using flashbangs, using Candelas, and not following up on it. You're using utility for no return, and this is something I quite like. Non-traditional take on the pixel hold. You have the flash there, full body rotate, and the Surya gates to back it up. X13, this is going to slow down their attempt to pick up that momentum that they've been lacking in the last couple of rounds. It's been Depth setting pace, setting the kind of agenda when it comes to this push, when it comes to the defense. And right now, there's going to be one big fight. It's going to be that clash you have to deal with, because like you said, it presents an issue. What do you do? Do you deal with it, or do you avoid it? And what are the pros and cons? What do you lose by chasing it, and what do you lose by leaving it? Well, right now, you're going to use some utility to get some banshees. Some drones will be called out, and thus the information. That's the most important part of this. For Spiker, you could just call when to peek.
Did you see how Ellis put his utility on the red stairs, his air jabs? He put one out in the open and one hidden on this railing. I think the idea behind that is just to grab, well, he gets shot, and then you yeet somebody to the other side because they don't expect you to be there. Now, we're talking about yeeting utility, but you can also yeet players. Breeze and Esteem has fallen, a smoke off the board in one of the opening duels. A critical mistake by Depth. You don't want to be in this scenario. We're talking about wasting time in round 7. Well, that's no longer a factor with that utility. 30 seconds of toxic gas completely off the board for a senseless peek. And now X13 has a position to go for a plan. The bomb's going down over in U-Bar. More gunfights go in favor of X13. And now it's on Spiker, forced to de-sheath. He collects one on Debray, but that gun is only good for one. X13 on a swift execute being stemmed by their kills.
Yes, and well, you know, X13, you're able to draw level, but the momentum, it's very much in Depth's ballpark. Now, like you said, you took away the smoke. These were some huge impact kills when you push through. You take control of a couple of kills from that pressure on the south side window. It's something that has a criminally low amount of appearances, in my opinion, Chief. It's something that you benefit too much from it to not want to do it, but there are risks associated with it. I feel like a Nomad's a really good position there, but then you think about Red says you need jabs there, you might need them in Pixel. No, well, simply put, X13, they put a player over on that window, and they found the kills. As soon as that happened, Cocktail opens up, the players start flooding through, and you've got 2 kills, but the rest of the players, where they're positioned over towards white, and one of them being a clash, well, you have to push. You have to try and take control of Cocktail. Get the plant down. You have such a wide advantage. You can play it safe. Now, oh, that's rough. Rice spilled some water on his keyboard, and while I just finished my point, I've got something. But you push in, you take control of that map control while it's there, and even if you don't win the gunfights, you pull back. You get on the roof, you get on that skylight, and the biggest thing for Rice now is probably put some rice on his keyboard to try it out.
And I just say you spilled something on your keyboard last week, if I remember correctly, right?
Not last week,
2 weeks ago. You actually broke your keyboard, right? If I remember that.
Right, yeah, actually, yes. So basically, in mid cast, right?
Yep.
Dedication to the craft, right?
Too much.
Mid cast, I tried to type, I knocked over my glass and killed my keyboard while I had to cast. So on screen keyboard for a day. That was fun. I've got a 10-pound keyboard over on my right, and I've got an actual good one here. But speaking of keyboards, it looks like Rice's hasn't suffered the same fate as mine, which is a lot cheaper. So I'm both jealous and happy for them, because they can keep playing. We don't have to have a break to get subbed.
That would be too funny. I mean, maybe you can buy one of those, not a sponsor, but one of those like Corsair mice that have like 8,000 buttons on the side. So in the event that you do break it, you can still just, like hit buttons on the side of your mouse. Oh. Pro tip for the future, and I do have to apologize for doing you dirty, but I just couldn't miss the opportunity of roasting you at every turn I can, just because I love you, man. So I just have to, jab a knife through the ribs.
I've got a spare keyboard now. I'm pretty good. Plus, I'm not exactly skinny, so a knife in the ribs won't do too much damage. But X13, they need to do the same damage you saw last time, don't they? And this setup is interesting. Like in the piano side, they've got a shield that allows for very aggressive play, don't they?
Oh, that they do, but more aggressive play. We're talking about pushing in from underneath through reading room sign. Depth elected not to do that. Jay Slime, on the other hand, absolutely will. There's rotations. He spots out one. And the corner, Malusi of Dami has no idea what's taking place. And that was a full sin by Jay Slime. Where was the coordination by Depth? Because they absolutely knew that Jay Slime was down here. Why? Because Rice almost got killed by that Ash launcher. It destroyed the Banshee right next to her on that stairwell. So obviously they knew that there was something fishy going down, but unfortunately that dialogue was never fully relayed. And now Depth are going to have to fight the remainder of round 9 with a man disadvantage.
Yes, that they will. And while the audio cues, they might be tunnel vision, but they do have that wooden and white stairs. That's a huge position to hold, because you have that player, that utility. It's a lot less important now. Concussion Ace and Spear still have the impact with flashbang, smoke grenades. They won't. That's the big thing. Rice is getting aggressive on the red stairs, and realizes, well, there's probably no one hatched, so let's get down below. Let's catch them off guard. Breeze, those glasses won't do the intended job, but Spike is going to be able to. Finding a kill into Snow. Breeze gets one of their own, but J Slime pushes up and finds a kill. Pushing up now, J Slime has a choice. Freezer or Bathroom. You're going to have to deal with this team. You can't let him live. The diffuser's down. Frags are the way forward. J Slime finding that smoke.
Uh-oh, more kills. J-Slime now collects his 4K. Spiker on the other side of the map in a difficult position to defend his bombs. J-Slime, the man who's been going nuclear, well, he's temporarily silenced. X13, they have a lot of time left in this round, but they have to grab this diffuser. That means vaulting outside the window, and Spiker's gonna hear that audio cue. An upside down rappel now, and it's going to be the kill. Oh. It's going to be a blunder. Elset repels on through, but his body is exposed. Now losing his life. Bry goes for the stun lock. He knows that the remaining member of Depth is lurking below. Bry's gonna have to completely reposition himself, but he melees a Banshee. That's free information to the remainder member of Depth, and Spiker hightails it out of there. He has the diffuser on lockdown, but he gets air jabbed away. That could have been the fatal mistake, but not yet capitalized on by Bry. Spiker hightails it out of there once again. He's just gonna play the clock. It's just the rotation around the map, dropping through the hatch. Bry has no information to go with, and Spiker single-handedly takes the day for Depth. An incredible round for him. He was all over the place, but exactly where he needed to be every single gunfight he took.
A moment of silence for the effort posted by J-Slime there. Pushing in 4 kills, able to really open things up, finding the Lucy. Then you get up those white stairs, you get the wall and the smoke. And then that happens. It was really rough at that point. J-Slime being taken away. It was just down to Spiker being slippery, I think is going to be the word. You drop down, you're finding a kill onto J-Slime. You go there, you hear that rappel. You go and get a kill while they can't do anything about it. Then you play it safe. Then you rotate. Use the rotation holes that are made by your Rooney and just become essentially untouchable. At that point, you needed to see... You needed to see Bright go for the plant. There was no way that you were going to be able to find a kill. Spiker realized you had to run. You go upstairs, you wait for them to get upstairs, you drop down below, and you maybe run down. It didn't really matter at that point. Time was over in Depth. 1 round away from overtime. 2 rounds away, Chief, from pushing us to Clubhouse.
This could be the nail in the coffin for X13. The problem is they've had so many rounds that were close. Rounds that they could taste victory as on the tip of their tongue. But that good flavoring and that food was ripped away from them. They're forced to starve out rounds. And now, well, they're facing a predicament. If they lose this round, it's match point in favor of Depth. If they win this round, they're guaranteed to see round 12, which means we're going to see every round of regular play. And honestly, McCready, I'm very excited to see overtime, since we're now able to use infinite overtime since we don't have a time restraint, which is always fun to see. X13, they're going to try to have no time in this round. Why? As they've rushed through white and they're already preparing their execute. It was a 4-man off site for Depth, and now they're going to have to crash onto their own bomb site, and they're going to have to crash quickly.
Yes, but one player is going to be Spiker willing to slow this down. The rest of the team, they're going to drop down that dining hatch. That's what it's for. They're going to head towards it at least. Right now, X13, if they realize this, they can push into side. They might rotate around to Bakery and go for a plant there, because you can do that. There is nobody nearby, and you know this. So the Malusi Banshee goes. Snow leads that judge. Is able to find a kill into his team. Things open up, but not before we see a double kill for Brian Breeze and Brian finding Rice. 3 versus 2. It's very hard to keep up, but we'll do our best here over at UPL. And Breeze, unable to find their 11th kill, is going to be taken down. It's all down to Dommy, finding a kill into El Chapo. J-Slime can go for the plan. Craze can back them up. And now the Malusi, in a 1 versus 2, has to stop the plant and has to get it defused.
Pre-aiming the corner, trying to find that head of a member of X13, but Dami, he will not find any of those targets. X13, their 2 remaining players, are going to use this clock perfectly. They're just sitting down and bunkering down. Dami's going to have to make a play, trying to go through the double doors, but stuck in a crossfire. The man that has 4K robbed, Well, he's going to hold the fort down for X13. An impeccable read by them. They realize that the bomb site was vacant because everybody from Depth was off the site, so they take it in their full control.
I mean, this is back and forth. I absolutely love it, Chief. I won't lie. I'm in the split camp right now. I want to see overtime, but it's 1 a.m. and I still have to cook, and I gotta give my girlfriend some support for next
You're gonna eat breakfast?
But dinner? Supper?
Can it be dinner tea? If it's 1?
My sleep schedule works on NA. But anyway, I digress. Honestly, I want to see overtime. I want to see a third map. My girlfriend's going to be annoyed, but I want to see it because it's just been such a good game. This map, so much closer, so much more nail-biting than what we saw on Villa. We saw X13 pick up the first couple of rounds, really push us all the way to match point, and then start to falter. Right now, the cracks are showing, and Depth is seizing upon it, but X13, they still have that little bit of control. Right now, though, I don't think we're going to see Depth give them an open sight again, so the big question is, how are they going to defend this? Are they going to focus on the top? They should, because that's a pretty typical setup, unless they've got some magic.
Magic would be something very interesting to incorporate in Rainbow Six Siege. So many gadgets technically operate on magic. I mean, Pulse's cardiac sensors, a good example of that. Soviet concussion grenades are magical because I don't think there's a single weapon in real life that concusses you and stun locks you like that. But I guess if I'm wrong, you could prove me wrong somewhere. Anyways, I digress. Tangents are always fun to have, but there can be no tangent for these rosters. They're truly set on one particular task. That is going to be winning round 11. Because if you win round 11, you're in the perfect position to go into round 12, which again is guaranteed. Because you need to be 7 rounds in regular play to actually win out this series. So, who is going to be the roster to achieve that goal? So far, X13, they're a smidge slow on their execute. But again, they're just trying to dot their I's and cross their T's to make sure they have the perfect onslaught of force to remove that pressure upstairs, because Depth is doing something a little bit different. This hold of bar back storage is going to be an awkward task to deal with.
Yes, now, what you can see is Spiker playing in Freezer, has line of sight on its shop, and reinforcements all nearby in a K-Claw in a very convenient position to make sure you aren't going to be pushed out. However, Craze is going to be able to find that first kill, gets a second! Cocktail is that man's home! Finding a third kill, Bryce able to add onto it. Craze with the SMG-11. He's done playing Siege. He wants to win it.
I have to say, on paper, I absolutely love the Depth strategy upstairs. Holding bar back is incredible. You could see what it was designed to do, to waste time. However, X13 said, screw it. We're just going to push, crouch walk through U-bar, behind, and to make sure the player sitting in bar back doesn't see what's going on. And we're just going to take gunfights. And X13 won, though. That's really what that round came down to. It wasn't a strategy. It was just X13 realizing that there could be a loophole, and they're just going to attempt to exploit it. And an incredible round for Crazed. He lines 2 of them up. He switches over to the player sitting in bar back storage. A Rooney then falls. After that, it was a 2v5. Depth was forced to get kills. They didn't quite have the position to deal with 5 players just storming into their bomb site, and they all instantly fell. As you mentioned, that flawless round for X13, and now they're on match point once again. They had a strong series on Villa. They ended up winning that 7-4. The 7-4 scoreline no longer available to them. The best they can do is a 7-5, and they're just that much closer. They had a good execute on the kitchen last time, being able to not necessarily rushing it, but a fast execute, because they bypassed all the roamers entirely. Depth will not make that mistake again, so X13 needs to go back to the drawing board for their final attack of regular time and see what will work for them.
Yes, now the big thing is, like you said, Depth, last time they want to go to this side, because last time they were here, they left it very, very free, very, very open. They're doing a similar thing now, but they're committing these roamers, these anchors to the bottom floor. No, they're not. I'm an idiot. I mean, I'd say try something else and then say, yes, we're going to be down here. We're going to try something else and that's going to win. But yet again, X13, they're reading into it. They're leading the charge. The C4 goes through and shot out midair. Snows, what a shot! That might be it. Spike is able to find 2 kills. Takes away Snows. El Chapo, though, able to find 1 and gets down. It's a 3 versus 2, Chief, with El Chapo being down. But the rest of X13 have potential. Right now, though, they're back to square one. The Roamers have collapsed. 2 minutes 20 and a 2 versus 3.
Elson is now fully finished off. The rush for X13 so far not looking too brilliant for them. 2 of their players remain crazed in a predicament. Does he go for a plant or does he go for gunfights? He's fully stuck in a crossfire. He tries to prey fire it, but he doesn't do that. The only thing he's accomplished is burying his diffuser in the bomb site. Now Jay Slime in a bad position, sitting on about 30 HP, stuck over by Wedding. Now has to take multiple gunfights. He pre-fires these corners. The only thing that he's doing is alerting Depth exactly where he is. And look at the position. A 3-lane crossfire. It's Breeze that finalizes that kill, but any member of Depth could have been able to capitalize on it. The strategy for Depth, this offsite pressure, actually works out pretty well for them because when they do crash back onto the bomb site, there are so many lanes for them to look, they just get free kills.
You've got to give Depth a lot of credit. They realized last time they held that there was a glaring issue and a gap in their defense, and that was the gap in their defense. They were all on top floor. This time, they were prepared. The first hint of pressure they felt on the bottom floor, they went down, they locked it down. They won those gunfights. Huge effort from Spiker there. That's honestly it for me. Spiker goes down, finds those first 2 kills, and X13, you have 1 player inside, 2 players outside, trying to make something happen. But they couldn't because Spiker bought the time that the team needed to get down and get those crossfires. At that point, like you said, it was just walking into the middle of no man's land, and any one of those 3 players could have landed those kills. Just happened to be Breeze. Returning to its bottom floor in overtime, like you said, infinite overtime. So the team needs to win an attack and a defense round, just in case you haven't seen it in a while. And fun fact, Chief, this is my first game of infinite overtime I'm casting, and I'm looking forward to it.
Really? This is your first time?
Yep.
Unfortunately, I have the record for the 2nd longest game of Rainbow Six Siege history in competitive.
I know.
And that was a grueling experience. That was a 26-round game, and it was an incredible series. Lycus Empire versus Emergence. Lycus ended up winning that, and that was just the power of 2 teams with similar skill sets going at each other. And I have to say, unlimited overtime is the most refreshing from a competitive standpoint because sometimes maps are just defender-sided. So if you're doing the traditional 3 rounds of overtime, whoever has defense first, or the first and third time, everyone look at the round 13 and the round 15 defenses, are going to have the advantage. Now that you have unlimited overtime, it doesn't matter if you start an attack or defense first. It's actually probably more beneficial to start on attack because we see teams who start on attack have a higher percentage of actually winning rounds. And well, it seems like X13 is going to pave that statistic once again as Spiker falls, almost converted into a second one, but unfortunately not fully secured.
I agree with that word. But moving forward, Craze was unable to find that kill. Huge effort on the entry, just stepping up. And while we all make mistakes, I think Craze was just not pulling the trigger at the right time. But it's fine. You've got aggressive, you put pressure on. Depth, return to the bottom floor. Don't have that heavy roam presence, but have utility designed to slow down X13. Like you said, they dot the I's and cross the T's. X13, they need to be slowed down, so that's what Depth have done. They've located a lot of these big problem areas and said, no, we deal with them. We put something in their way to slow them down, whether it's a player, a reinforcement, utility, anything, Chief. And we're already at the halfway mark and only seen 2 kills on the board so far. The drones, they're going to be key. We need to see X13. If they want to follow in that statistic, simply put, they need to have all the information they need. They need to push in, get the opening kill. Snows will lose 1 drone to a Mozzie Pest. Doesn't know if that bottom white garage is clear. Will do now because it's being shot open. But Rice is ready to punish. With that K1A, it's going to be anything but struggling at all. El Chapo ignoring that area. And right now it feels very tense. I'm feeling the pressure, but right now it's going to be X13. They will have to push within the next 50 seconds, Chief. Otherwise, it's all over.
I'm sure the players are feeling that pressure as well, but they have to be in that competitive mindset the entire time. You shake, you stutter, you crash, and you burn. You have to be in that go state the entire time. You have to be as competitive as possible. Now X13 still pushing in through VIP. Rice is being flanked from two different sides and removed off the pitch. X13 once again has that man advantage, but they don't have the time advantage. They're going to have to continue on through these lanes and start pushing the shotgun. A Steam cycles at once, attempting another kill, switches over to his SMG-11, but kills back and forth between these rosters once again. X13 now has control of the B bomb site, and they're going to start to go for their plan. No Nitro Cell to be seen on the side of Depth, and that means if Depth wants to save this round, they have to take out Gunfight. Snows, the planter goes down, but not out, and save for Depth. X13 loses round 13, and good positioning and a good crash by Depth. They save themselves once again, and now they're one round away from sealing Cafe and propelling us into map 3.
Yes, and if they're able to do it, well, Depth, simply put, will just redeem themselves in my eyes completely. You know, they had a really good redemption arc on Villa, but this is where they've really started to step up now. As we approach almost all the Depth players on 10 deaths or more, it makes you wonder, X13, are they just trying to win out some gunfights, maybe not deal with the utility? I don't think so. I feel like it comes down to they died less purely because the time runs out a little bit more, and you're seeing rounds like we just saw where they had to get the plant down but weren't able to. Honestly, it's very hard for me to critique these teams because I'm looking at very, very small things and I'm saying this is a big problem because there's very little to really critique in my opinion. I'm sure I might be wrong. There might be things that you may look at and they might see in the VOD review and say, no, that's bad. But right now, it's just one team that might be feeling fatigue after playing 2 maps and going on to infinite overtime. Might just be fatigue and the other team just pick up on it, and then it might be vice versa the other round.
I mean, we're talking about the kill board, the kill leaders in this lobby. I mean, we see Cray sitting at 17, but it just doesn't feel like X13 has such a large kill advantage over Depth. I'm not sure how that has been established, but again, both these teams just feel so even throughout everything that they do. Now, X13, they're electing to go for the same reinforcements on the second floor that they did back when they were on defense. That was over 6 rounds ago. And what is Depth going to do differently? I was not the biggest fan of their West executes through piano. They just struggled to get control, and they were struggling to deal with the mirror windows. But everybody from Depth has now rotated up to that top floor. They're now on the roof. They're going to start to remove all of these hatches. And hopefully Breeze doesn't get nitrocelled because he was almost nitrocelled last time. There it is. Shot in midair, though. Wasted utility by X13. That nitrocell could have been so influential, but Crazed, he doesn't need that vertical play since he is behind those mirror windows. And there's the opening death. Bry off the board.
Yes, Bry being taken away. Well, it's basically Depth saying, we're comfortable, we're happy, we know that we can close it down and we want to. Craze has to play careful, don't get aggressive, don't swing that. There is a drone watching. There are windows watching. Chief, Rice is not a great spot, you know, you got those Banshees going off, you just can't reach it. You don't want to over-aggress, but the droning is there. And Domi is now in a horrible position. Craze is going to be able to win the gunfight to Rice, though. And we'll just back up the nice shot coming out to chat because it was. Depth, they're going to need a little bit more than just one nice shot. Breeze is going to make sure Craze isn't the one to deliver it. And now a 3 versus 4 Depth. 3 kills and 1 plant. Away from closing it down and pushing us to Clubhouse. Can X13 stop them? Who knows? They still have White Says, they still have Freezer. It could go either way.
Well, if you look at the scoreboard and you look at these players, that little diamond symbol, that 0 by Depth, that means they haven't planted once. You see on the other side of X13, they have 2 plants in their favor. So it's going to be an interesting opportunity for Depth. Are they just going to win this round based off kills? Or are they going to finally put the objective actually on the ground and secure it that way? We see a late round reinforcement. You can hear it going off. That's actually one of the top hatches. The whole idea behind this is simple. Breezes has a frag grenade, and the player on that hatch doesn't want to get killed by said frag grenade. And the frag grenades have all been used, so that strategy's actually worked out pretty decently for X13. Breeze is still going to have to work his way up the white stairs. The bomb is going down. X13 is nowhere to be seen, but just like that, 2 kills go in their direction. Now it's all an L set against 2. He hears the diffuser going down. He spots the head, but he misses the shot, and he connects with the other 2. An incredible showing of mechanical skill. He whiffs the first one, but still wins it outright. X13 still in this series.
Oh my lord, it does not get that close, Chief. The 1 versus 2. And just having the SMG not spotting the player, but still winning it like you said. And that is X13 hanging on by a thread. If they win this, well, they shut it all out. That's it, no clubhouse. If they lose this, then we're back to where we just were. X13, they were on the brink of going and losing Kaf Dostoyevsky and resetting the series, so it essentially became a best of 1. And Chief, X13 on attack. Let's take a breather, let's take a chill pill. Bar Cocktail, that's where they're going to be heading, and there's going to be Spiker on the Clash. Last time we saw this setup, it worked out for X13. They ignored the pixel position. They focused over towards Cocktail. They got the kills. They pushed in. They took control of Long Bar. That's how they won out the round, by then forcing the Clash to go alone. Is that what's going to happen?
I have absolutely no idea what to predict moving forward in this series. I mean, particularly after round 14 and that just monstrous play that we saw there. I mean, who knows what is going to transpire? Now, what is a little concerning moving forward is Bar hasn't been particularly the best map or the best bomb site for depth. They've been pretty comfortable downstairs in the kitchen with just about every single push that we saw coming out of X13. So we're gonna have to see what that actually means for them. Again, both these rosters are in a predicament. They're all tied up. They're in unlimited overtime, and they're just trying to find their own rhythm in this different style of play. Because when you're doing, the regular play, you have 6 rounds of attack, 6 rounds of defense. It's pretty much laid out in front of you. But now you have to switch mindsets because defending and attacking are about polar opposites. X13, they're not repelling to the roof at all. It seems like they have a particular strategy in mind.
No.
It is just a white execute.
Yes, J-Slime has got that reaching charge, deals with barbed wire, and thus draws the attention of Spiker, ready to rotate, realizing that you need to stop down this push. You can't let them get aggressive. Craze rotates around to try and help. Oh, that hatch is open, which means a drop could come out on the building play, but that's not going to happen right now. We're going to see Depth hold their ground, and Spike is going to be a key part of that. But vertical play is going to come through. J-Slime is going to be watching these rotates, hopefully catching one of these players off guard. By holding their ground, they're allowing the Bot and the Ash to get to work and destroy these defensive positions for later in the round when they do go for a push. Snow's drone will be taken away. Tommy and Rice over in Cigar's shop, ready to stop any drop from Hat and from Skylight and any push. But right now, X13, they realize what's at stake, Chief. They realize that one mistake and you might just give Depth the entirety of what they need. The push, it's going to have to come soon. Halfway mark, and some utility will be used, but no sign of the push just yet.
X13's all over the place. They're poking and prodding Depth. They want to find where they want to execute from, and the execute actually for X13, they can, in theory, go for any angle whatsoever. Craze drops a hatch. Snow's going to follow suit as well, but both those players now lose their life. Depth, once again, another strong defense. They had the man advantage, attempting to collect more, but Rice's unbridled aggression has now cost him his life. If J-Slime takes this gunfight and wins it, well, that could be these rosters once again tied up on the man count department. We are sub 60 seconds in this round. Domi has good positioning and a crossfire. It has to be addressed by J-Slime, but choked away by the toxic gas. He elects to go for a prone angle and still hunting and lurking for more members. The smoke actually working against Depth. Domi doesn't have the angle. He misses a shot, goes to the Nitrocell, and that doesn't connect as well. It's all on X13. They have control of the bomb site. Now they're in the post plan. It's on Depth to evolve into attackers and push their own bomb site.
Yes, last time we saw this, we saw Spiker getting taken away. This time it's going to be a team. Spiker, he pulls out the shield. He's got nothing left. He realizes this is it. If you do not win this, it is over. Bry calling out the GG in chat before the round's even over. You never know what this clash has got. But that's it. J Slime stays alive, takes away the Ash, and wins this round. GG's in chat.
They don't realize it's infinite OT. That's gonna be the biggest slap in the face.
Oh.
X13 thought they just won. Depsters thought they lost. The mentals are chalked. Everybody is just taking a reset. You can see it all in chat. We are still in this series. An incredible execute by X13. They now have to repeat it once again.
For people who might not be familiar with it, like myself, I assumed that as soon as one team won a round, it literally just 2 in a row. But it seems if you lose the round after you win one, then it resets into a kind of best of 3 rounds.
Yeah, best of 2 rounds. So,
okay,
yeah. So, in theory, if X13 wins in this second bracket of OT, so there's 2 brackets, so 2 rounds per bracket of OT. So, technically, X13 has to win 3 rounds in a row. But again, it's not 2 in a row. It's just the first 2, the bracket. So it was a bracket reset for round 14, the X13 win. Now with round 15, it's X13's advantage in the bracket. If they win, the bracket concludes with them being the victor of the series, not just the map. If Depth wins this round 16, we reset the bracket and we go into a 3rd round of OT.
So basically, if X13 win, it's over. If they lose, we continue. That's all I need to know. Looking at this defensive setup, well, Depth are probably being very, very relieved for this breath of fresh air. But the big thing you need to remember, Chief, is something you said. Attackers probably have a little bit of favor because they get the hard part done early. Now, X13 on the defense are down at the bottom floor. Remember, last time we were here, they had a really strong performance isolating these players and putting them in just horrible positions. Grace will survive playing in prep this time without that wall reinforced and wants to kill. Spots a player, but isn't going to get it.
If Craze died in the exact same scenario, I think I throw my headset and scream because that's just a huge mistake to be had. I do find it interesting. Pardon?
You just don't let that happen.
Oh, absolutely not. And for my sanity's sake, I hope I don't throw my headset too. So please, Craze, don't die to that position. I don't think my neighbors want to hear my headset being destroyed by the wall. I think that'd be something that they just don't want to have happen in their life. Now, I find the Hibana interesting because we've seen Depth use pretty much every hard breacher available to him. Ace has been banned for the Mira play because Ace is so good at opening up those mirror windows, but no Thermite has been seen. We've seen Maverick be played. Unfortunately, it was blundered away by the one time that Depth brought it out. Hibana, well, all of her pellets have now been used. That means vertical play no longer an option because you can't open up that hatch. But the round opens up with a fragmentation grenade. Crazed, well, he was an opening duel before, but fortunately not to bullets this time, but by a frag grenade.
Yes, well, Craze being taken away by this is at least wasted utility rather than just a bullet in a magazine. And, well, simply put, X13, they hold the crossfire, they wait. That is how they win this round. Right now, the Rice going for the roam clear will find Bry. Keeps Depth in it by just one more frag. Right now, on paper, well, you'd expect them to win. They have control. But Snows is able to answer back the older sings. And it finds 1 kill. Can it find more? A minute, and we are about to find out. X13, they hold it safe. They hold the crossfires. They try and be very careful with this positioning for the vertical play. Depth, they need to stay alive, and they need to make sure this is really correct. Time ticking down, Chief, and it seems they'll be able to find another killer. 2 versus 4. Can X13 close this out? I don't think so.
They're going to have to try their best if they want to conclude now. Snow's in an awkward position, but he connects the kill anyways. Red dot in hand. The man of the Gucci gang is going to try to get more players to join his team. Still trying to challenge Angle, swinging back and forth. No more coverage for Snows. He's against 3. There's bullets whizzing over his head, and Depth has him locked down in a particular position. Diffuser being planted. Snows has no idea where his opponents are, and they're going to capitalize on that information. Depth resets the bracket once again. Another round of OT is required to conclude this map.
Yes, so to double check, Chief, if we see Depth win this, is it over?
No.
No. Okay.
So basically, okay, how we have to look at it
just to make sure, because
yeah.
I'm very confused right now, so I want to make sure that anybody else who's just as confused as me might know, because I'm sure a lot of people know you win by 2, you win it all out, but I just want to make sure, Chief, let's be honest, how many times does Infinite overtime in leagues?
Actually, not often enough. Infinite
Yeah,
OT.
I
If
like it.
you if
I
you
like the
remove
idea.
the production like constraint from it, right? I get it's taxing on production because you just don't know how long a series is going to last. Where with round 15, that you're guaranteed an hour long game, if that. So yeah, infinite OT all over the place. It's going to be taxing for our players, and you can even see the mental fortitude starting to affect both these rosters. They're starting to get
Mm.
a little cranky. They're starting to get a little bit hungry, and seems like they're going to have to call for their mommies to get them some extra sustenance.
Yo, can we get some sandwiches in here, Chief? What do you want?
That'd be incredible.
I'm a BLT guy. How do you go for sandwiches, dude?
I'm an Italian guy. I love me an Italian sandwich, with some pepperoni, some salami, some ham, some
Ooh,
good dressing, some spices.
that
That's
sounds
where it's at.
that sounds a bit out of my price range for a recently graduated student.
Same.
So
We're in the
I'm
same
gonna.
boat. We were talking about that earlier.
It's okay. We'll just cry and have barbecue sauce sandwiches and ketchup sandwiches later. It's fine. Right now, the most important thing is depth. On their defensive half, they have bought themselves a little bit of breathing room and simply said, well, now that we're here, have at least one round to relax. We have this defensive position. We can win this out. This is the same setup we've seen them lose 2 times in a row, but maybe 3 times a charm, Chief.
Well, we're about to see an extra half be added to Cafe because it's going to be up to 6 rounds for this bracket, which means, well, if you do math quickly in your head, 6 rounds for a half, that means an additional half has been added. Quick maths, and apparently my degree in finance is actually paying off for something. Now, hopefully X13's attack pays off, which means they get this opening kill, they remove the clash from play that's going to allow them to go for a swift execute. The thing is, we actually see a full change-up for X13. The last time that they went for a bar attack, they went from a ground-up attack, pushing in all the way from that first floor, applying pressure over into reading room. Now no longer an option for them. They've committed a lot of their force over to the west side, and they're do just about as predictable as a push as possible. Now, they probably weren't quite prepared for the clash. They may have seen it in previous rounds, but she's always a minute to deal with.
Yes, now this is a different push, but I think that's because depth, they've been able to adapt each time. Now, the room clear, that's going to be a key part. Chase Slime down below as ever. Do you know about the Arunia Breeze coming in to support? Well, you get behind in cover just to realize quickly, but you know exactly where he is. You find the kill to J Slime. You get things in control of depth, and Dommy suddenly has a renewed confidence to hold that position. Reinforced walls means that all El Chapo can do is pre-fire. Now there is pressure on the top floor, but Rice is going to alleviate it with a kill onto Bry, holding that bathroom, holding that pixel, making sure the clash cannot be taken away. Chief, this is a round that depth so far definitely deserve to win. Time though, a minute left, a lot of things can go wrong. Snows is wanting to push into this cocktail, for example. Craze is on the cocktail window again, and we all know what happened last time Craze decided to go in this window.
Craze has actually been quite quiet. We highlighted him back in round 7 for sitting at 17 kills. Since then, he's only grabbed an additional kill. Incredible player early on, but it seems like he just hasn't had quite the impact that his team once needed. And Snows has stepped to the plate to fill in that void. Elset is off the board, and now X13 with 23 seconds left in this round. The attackers have to start to swing into action. They have to deal with every one of these players, and they're unable to do so. Crazed against 5. Round, well, 17 is looking like a depth win. Everybody's going to start to peak Craze, but it's just a consolation prize. Another flawless round. Depth, only the second one that we've seen so far here on Cafe.
That was hungry, Chief, and that's simply just them saying, okay, well, we adapted quite well to them. Let's do that again. Let's trust in our adaptation. Let's keep these players down below. We know J-Slime likes to get down there, cause shenanigans. They had Buck last time, causing a lot of issues down in that reading area. So we apply a couple of players. They will try and clear us out. J-Slime is very comfortable doing so. So we win that. That's what happened. And then as soon as that happened, Dommy just did not have to worry about a goddamn thing, Chief. Just playing nice and pretty inside that train area. And that's where we saw things really start to fall apart. That pressure was still there. You couldn't get below to deal with the clash. The clash stayed alive. Rice just sat so comfortably in that bathroom, picked apart those heads. That was a very well played from Depth. I think Flawless Round describes it perfectly. X13, they weren't really there, in my opinion. But back to the bottom four. Let's see if we go here again. Let's see if Craze can survive the Ballad of Bakery, I think that's what we're going to call it. And the Bakery Wall. I don't know. You can take it from here.
What my esteemed colleague was trying to say is, do we rush or do we not rush? That is the question. And X13 needs to decide, do we clear out the map or do we just fly in? And flying in is no longer an option. You have two different mirror windows facing towards the west. And that means Depth has two different eyeballs that they can say, hey, we have something odd going on. So not an option going forward. X13 locking down their bomb site. And again, this is the beauty of infinite overtime. Nobody can predict what shenanigans that we're going to see. Is it X13 winning another round, resetting our bracket once again for our fourth round of overtime, or overtime bracket, I should say? Or is it Depth confirming that Cafe is indeed their map, and they want to continue on this trend and send us over into Clubhouse? So far, Depth, they're clearing out the top floor, removing those hatches. It's an easy round for their drones, at least on this third floor. Nobody's up to be seen. They're all gone. They're all on the second floor, holding completely different angles. Depth needs to identify this sooner rather than later and start to expedite this clear. X13 has actually foregone the second floor hold as well, other than a Jaeger. J-Slime lurking over by the red, just attempting to grab a drone and maybe doing some shenanigans as well.
Yeah, doing a little trolling. J-Slime is going to move up and looking to catch them off guard. If you can get some kills off here, J-Slime, and maybe look the right way, which is that definite exact position, you can really shut things down. If you can get in there, get over towards reading, maybe catch this player off guard, that's huge. But if you can catch Rice, take him off the board, the anti-frag is gone. Utility destruction's gone. But J-Slime doesn't know, and because of that, well, Rice himself is gone. You're going to have to worry about something. Crazy's going to be able to find a kill. J-Slime, every passing minute, he gets more powerful by the second. You cowards will never stop him. Crazy's looking to find another kill. Speaking of not being stopped, J-Slime, 1 HP, finds a kill onto Breeze.
That's a why was he there? And you can insert a 4-letter word there if you like moment. An unfortunate scenario. Depth didn't quite have the coverage of drones, no flank drones to be seen, and now Rice, who is tasked with a vertical play, has to be recalled to deal with the roamers. X13 owns the top floor. Part of the problem was Depth actually opened up the train hatch, and that just means vertical pressure from every single possible way. X13 is going to relegate more of their attackers and defenders up to that floor, and now it's a full sin. It's just Rice as he drops in through Meat Locker. He gets one, a consolation prize, but he's being shot through the floor. Craze kills his teammate. J-Slime gets removed, but Snow's there to save the day. The bracket of 4 reset once again. We need a 5th overtime bracket to close out this series.
A flawless round coming out from X13. Bar, Craze, just getting a little bit out there. 9-9. All of the players, almost all of the players in the lobby on 2 double figures or more. And when the support players have started catching up, then suddenly you start to think, all right, well, Chief, we might be here for a while. Craze actually hitting that 20 bomb and, well, leading the charge. Craze been a very strong player, obviously. Like you said, had a couple of rounds that didn't really matter so much or didn't have the impact you'd expect, but definitely performing in a massive way. The rest of X13 can level it up with the mechanics, but Depth, strats, and their adaptation, the way they play around X13, that's really impressed me so far, simply put, Chief.
I have to say, I want to echo what you're saying. Both these rosters are impressing the heck out of me. They're playing so well. And again, we're sitting at round 19, and fatigue has to be a big factor. Now, maybe, you know, that 15-second pause that we had to have between map 1 and 2 could be helping out these rosters. I mean, there was a substitute, and Rise was looking a little bit slow. I don't think he had a warm-up going into the series, but he's definitely started to hold his own. I mean, after all, he is tied for the most kills with Breeze, and that's impressive for a player that had to literally just hop onto his PC with no moment's notice and step up to the plate for Depth. Again, X13, you're highlighting Crazed, has been just as good. Snows, you mentioned him catching up. I mean, every one of these rosters is just playing lights out. You can tell that neither one of these teams wants to go home in this quarterfinals match, our first quarterfinals. And I hate to say it, one of these rosters will unfortunately be packing their bags.
Yeah, you said I hate to say it. I was worried you were going to say the accursed past words of bomb burner. But
I refuse to say that word. That's not in my vernacular.
I mean, I've got a little, like, nice little doodle of a bomb being burned just in case, and there wasn't a bias on that, but nah, neither of those really apply right now. This is not a bomb burner, this is just a beautiful piece of gameplay coming out from both teams. X13, well, they're going to start on that roam clear, they're going to try and deal with this, and Craze has decided to go for the Jackal instead of the Sledge. Now, you don't have the frag grenades, but the vertical play you can still complete with the shotgun. You can deal with these roamers, you can put the pressure on them. But, Chief, this is quite interesting. Depth have decided to go for that very, very extended roam, I think we could describe it. But this time X13 have gone for the roam clear. Now, though, the one time they do go for the roam clear, Depth have all gone back to sites. We're going back into a more of a normal round unless they decide to get aggressive. With the drone work, the air jabs, you can't falter on the basics, and that's what's being tested right now. It's not who's the better team, it's who has better stamina, essentially.
Yeah, who brains are going to melt the first is a roster that's ending up losing. Now, the problem with Depth was they fell off too soon. They fell off at 60 seconds. Most roamers want to fall off at the 90-second mark. This is going to give X13 more than enough time to completely remodel the ceiling and remodel in a way that Depth just doesn't want. They want to have as much ceiling coverage, but fortunately, as Steam and Rice and this duo roam are able to swing off each other, this holdover by VIP is being quite oppressive, but now fully addressed by X13 and now finished off. More members of Depth are going to start to find themselves buried 6 feet under. Breeze is the only one who's off-site. He's off-site, lurking in one of these bunker down positions over by Code. LS goes for a pre-fire, almost connecting the head of Breeze, but it has to require vertical pressure from X13. You still have flat-placed breaching charges that can directly deal with them. While with 30 seconds left, Bry is starting to gear up for the execute.
Yeah, so right now X13, well, the attack they're going to have to execute. Bry's going to have to be one of those players leading the charge. Roof Trace being taken away. It's going to be Brian J-Slime really pushing through. Asim's going to make sure it's not Snow. It's just J-Slime on that refragger push coming to Spiker. Able to find a kill, but not another. The plant's going down and Breeze all on their lonesome. Has to try and stop it. The angle is being covered. The plant will be confirmed. X13, they're looking good to put us on to overtime match point again. Can they stick it? Well, Breeze still has an opportunity to prove otherwise. Pushes through this towards this double door. Realizes there's a Sophia. Somebody's watching it. Gets J-Slime with a beautiful shot over towards Rice and walks forward. Pushes forward, realizing the last play. It's got to be in Freezer. The pre-fire has to come out. The drone will be taken away. A swing follows from Bry. And X13 win round 18. Did some maths in my head. And I'm a media student, so that's impressive, but taking nothing away from that attacking ground and the post plant set up by X13.
Unfortunately, being a media student, that was round 19 that we just saw, not round 18. But it happens best to us. And even me, with a degree in finance, I said that we are going into overtime bracket 5, that we're currently in the middle of overtime bracket number 4. So it seems like McCready and I have lacking the ability to comprehend what's going on in the server, and more crucially, comprehend basic math. And again, words are hard, math is hard, and winning this series seems to be just as hard. X13 is going to find themselves up once again. They're moving over to defense once again. And this is a good position to be in. If X13 wins this round, we find ourselves in the position where they're moving on to the semifinals. If Depth wins this round, round 20, we reset this bracket and actually go into the overtime bracket number 5, and we continue our merry way through this series. And I promise you, everybody wants to see somebody win. And if you're a Depth fan, you're holding your fingers crossed, making sure X13 blunders this away. X13, every time that they go up to bar, it's the same strategy. Mirror windows being placed, looking towards the west, looking towards the north, and depth every single time has elected to go for a west third floor clear. The only time that we've seen a execute at all on that second floor was actually the last time that we saw Bar back in round 17. It was a split execute with a late rotation. What that means was depth. They dropped the hatches. They did everything normal. Then they realized the mirror windows are being quite annoying, so they decided to rotate down. The rotation almost allowed them to win the round, but it came out too late. Now depth, they have to fully address the scenario up front. And if they want to clear those mirror windows, you do it from the second floor.
To the credit of X13, I will just add on to this. They've been going to that kitchen a lot, as have depth. And honestly, well, it doesn't surprise me that they're choosing something else. Now, G-Slime, potential to really mess things up, but that is going to be a GN in chat coming out from Spiker. Bullet holes, gets countered, and immediately puts some of his own in that wall. Doing this, there must have been a flying cam because Spiker, that's well executed, well dealt with, I think is the word I'm going to say this. You now have control of that bottom white stairs. What are you going to do with it? Well, simply put, you put a Sophia ready on this south side. Now, you can cause a lot of issues here, Chief, very simply. But the biggest one that's going to get caused is if someone jumps out the white stairs. That's why you hold that angle. El Chapo will put C4 out, try and find a kill, but there's nothing there. Right down below is making sure that that mirror window isn't going to get dealt with, which is something you placed a lot of emphasis, which sounds about right. This mirror window can really shut things down if we don't see depth deal with it in a timely manner.
Our breach has opened up the red wall, and it's going to be facilitated by upside down repels on the exact opposite side of the map. Finally, we're going to see an upside down repel on the east window. You couple that with an upside down repel also on the south window. At X13, they're actually not going to be as comfortable on their bomb side as they have been in previous rounds. They're going to have to start to address these issues sooner rather than later. A Steam goes for a full mag dump, none of those bullets connect, and it's Information City for X13. Reset Echo drones are providing all the information in the world. X13, their dead player, J-Slime, can just relay it. A Jack-in-a-Box spring. Lset connects with a Steam, and no more hard breach to be seen in round 20.
Yes, Tommy's gonna put some shots through, but he isn't gonna land the shot. Crazy's alive. The C4 doesn't connect. And now it's just gonna be Crazy walking away. Spiker able to finally kill onto Chapo. And oh, we are looking at this is back and forth. X13, it's looking so far that you're gonna be able to close it down. Depth. If they win this, by the way, Chief, they will break the record for the longest UPL game. By the way. And you might be on your way to cast another record breaker at some point. Snows is able to find a kill, make that 2. The plank's going down, Craze, and we're able to shut it down. The plank's gonna get off, and it's all down to Breeze. 1 kill, you're able to get 1. Can you get a second one? Time to get out the SMG-11. It comes out. Craze is holding the angle. The pre-fire comes. The reload is there, and the pre-fire gets it. X13, 20 rounds. They close it out.
The UPL record will now be tied, I believe. And that is a record I'm glad I didn't get to break, because having the second longest game ever to be casted would be nuts. I didn't cast the UPL one. I don't believe I cast the UPL one. I think that was... Oh, apparently I did cast the UPL one. I forgot about it entirely.
You really can't.
I'm just glad that we didn't get to do that again. I'm lost for words. The series was incredible. Not quite breaking my personal round 26er, but still just as long. An incredible series. Again, depth. We were talking about them on Villa. They were down 6-1 in round 7. They had a strong comeback, ending up losing Villa at a 7-4. But I don't think anybody was expecting them to take X13 all the way to round 20. That infinite overtime where both rosters were just going back and forth, back and forth. Nobody looked like they could win. X13 decided to stop that outright. They had 2 players against 4, and at the end of the day, Snows and Craze stepped up when their roster needed them the most. They won gunfights being facilitated by information that Echo Jones. Everybody who was dead and alive came together for X13. A perfect culmination of a round, and no better way to win this series, propel them into the semifinals. But unfortunately, depth, they won't be moving on anymore in the spring season of UPL. They have lost the battle, but a valiant effort and an incredible round, and an incredible game, an incredible series. I promise you, everybody's going to be looking back to this series and remembering it.
Oh yeah, myself as well, especially when I can't sleep tonight. But the big thing I do want to point out is that, well, I gotta, I didn't, but I'm gonna say that I called it because I said, well, depth, they started stepping up on Villa, and it wasn't enough to break it. But then I said, well, that makes you think maybe CAF might be something. They might be able to get it there, and well, they were able to push it as far as they wanted. Max OT, I think, unless I'm mistaken. I don't know. That I really don't care how many maxes, because that was such a long game. It tested everything the teams had: the adaptation, the stamina, the mechanical endurability. Because playing for that long, my aim would probably start to slip. Playing that long, my adaptation on strats would probably slip. And I think that's what happened, Chief. That was part of the problem. Teams are getting tired, and they've exhausted a lot of their strat book. They were like, okay, well, we'll do this and just win our gunfights at this point, because what else are we going to do?
That was a lot of Maxes in that sentence, but you're not a Max. You're an Adam. You're a McCready. And with that terrible joke, that's it for us here on UPL. The quarterfinals, the first one has concluded, but there are still two more to be seen as I get booed off the stage. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for tuning in. It is going to be Prevail versus, let me see who's playing. It's Prevail versus Team Mystic tomorrow. It's going to be an incredible series. Unfortunately, you're going to be stuck with me again with more bad jokes. McCready, you'll be stepping away. Stick will be in your place. But until next time, stay safe, stay well, and be back with you tomorrow.